stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and with justice for all.
Mr. Brown, would you read the open public meetings statement, please?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by adoption of the appropriate resolution listed as 2019 meeting date.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by adoption of the appropriate resolution listing the 2019 meeting dates by adoption of supplemental resolutions by emailing a copy of the said resolutions to the record and the Jewish standard. By filing a copy of the township clerk's office posting on the municipal bulletin board, these statements will be included in the minutes.
So order. Couple of quick items of business.
Roll call.
That's one of them. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Barner? Mr. Vice Chair Rosen?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ledford?
Here. Okay, I am Harvey Rosen. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board. The Chairman of the Board, Jan Meyer, has recused himself from this application. In addition, our attorney for this evening and continuing on this application is Mr. Dan Steinhagen, next to me. We only have one item of business to enact, and that would be the memorialization of the resolution on the Shiloh High School girls, the minor note. Everyone had a chance to review it. Seeing no objections, all in favor of accepting that resolution, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So ordered. We have one application on the docket for tonight, and that is the continuing application of 189 Plaza. Mr. Jason Truvel is attorney for the case. And just to reacquaint anyone with the procedure of the board, if you haven't had an opportunity to attend previous meetings of the board, our way of proceeding is for the attorney for the applicant to call his expert witnesses. The board has the opportunity to ask questions of those witnesses, and then we open it to the public for questions only about the witnesses that you just heard. So we'll only entertain questions about the testimony that has just been presented. We ask you not to come up to the microphone and present your opinion or present your case or evidence. This is not the proper time for that. That time will be allotted to everyone at the end of the application, whenever that may be, this week or next month or 6 months, whenever that occurs. The public will have the opportunity to express your opinion, present evidence, and that's the way we proceed. Mr. Truvel, I understand that to make sure that you'll be calling your architect, Mr. John Stasi.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening, Jason Truvel, attorney for the applicant.
Yes, we good?
Are we all set?
Okay. We'll talk this all about.
But is the recording working? So
Yeah.
the recording's working?
Okay.
All right.
Proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jason Truvel, attorney for the applicant. Again, this is the project 189 The Plaza. Where we left off at the last meeting, our project architect, John Nastasi, provided some direct testimony. He was questioned by the public. I think based on some time constraints, we had to end questioning with Mr. Nastasi. So my understanding, at least procedurally at this point, those members of the public who did not have a chance to ask questions of Mr. Nastasi at the last meeting can do so. I would like to recall him as well to provide some limited testimony. We did make changes to the plans between this meeting and the last meeting, mainly with regard to circulation within the parking garage. And those comments were based on comment letters received from both the board engineer as well as the board traffic engineer. So I'd like you to explain those. After Mr. Nastasi has testified on that, I will call our traffic engineer who will go into even further detail, not only regarding the circulation within the parking garage, but also just the traffic impacts that the project may or may not have on the surrounding area. So those are the witnesses that I plan on calling. I don't plan on concluding the presentation this evening. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to call any members of the public.
Let's have Mr. Nastasi come to the microphone.
Just before we do that, just a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to take care of. The board received today the review. Oh, sorry. The board received today the review letter of Schwann Falls Engineering dated October 17, 2019. Did you get that, Mr. Trubel?
Yes, I got a copy of that, and then I also received an updated letter from the board's traffic consultant as well. That was not today. That was I actually received it today, but it was dated a few days ago. So those were two new reports that I received.
Okay, I was going to mention that. So we're going to mark the Schwann Falls letter as B4 and the Sam Schwartz engineering or Sam Schwartz consulting letter as B5. We do have our concept planner, Ms. Gregory, who was here last time and was sworn. Mr. Luvio from Sam Schwartz has a personal matter that he had to attend to tonight. His colleague Tim Norderweir, who was here last time, is here, but I'd like to swear him and get him qualified.
Sure.
To the extent that he needs to make any statements, give any testimony, ask any questions. Mr. Norderweir, please come up. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm any testimony you will give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state your name and your address for the record?
Tim Norderweir, 530 Jefferson Street in Hoboken, apartment 22.
Business address.
Business address. 30 Montgomery Street, suite 1340.
Sam Schwartz?
Yes,
And are you a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
I am.
And your license is currently in good standing? Sorry, your license is currently in good standing?
Yes, it is.
And you worked on land use applications before?
Yes.
Multifamily?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I actually worked with Mr. Norderweir on another matter.
I see no objections
I'd recommend you qualify.
All right, seeing no objections, thank you very much for accepting.
Thank you.
Please.
N-O-O-R-D-E-W-I-R. Tim.
Okay. So I'd like to recall Mr. Nastasi. Mr. Nastasi was sworn and accepted by the board as an expert in architecture at the last meeting.
Okay, so just to make public aware, if there was anybody that was present at the last meeting who did not have an opportunity to ask Mr. Nastasi any questions about his testimony of September 19th, I believe we were able to accommodate everybody, but I just want to make sure.
Nope.
Is there anybody in the room that did not have the opportunity to ask Mr. Nastasi questions of his testimony on the 19th?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Before I begin, let me ask one question. There was many times in the transcript that I reviewed today. I'm sorry, Charles Powers, 1374 Academy Lane, Teaneck. There were many times in the testimony and certainly in the transcript where Mr. Trubel was actually the one responding to the questions quite substantively, promising a variety of things for be brought back to the board in this meeting and commenting on various factors and augmenting Mr. Natasi's testimony. Is there some reason why I can't ask him questions as well?
He's not a witness.
What is he?
He's an attorney.
So his statements are how understood?
They're not evidential.
They play no role, and no commitments that he makes are commitments that are considered evidentiary in this proceeding?
They're not evidential. He makes a commitment that someone is going to come back with something. The board recognizes that, and if they don't come back with it, that might look, the board could look disfavorably upon that, but he's not presenting evidence in support of the application.
All right.
He can present argument, but he does not testify, and you cannot ask. You can ask questions. The board can rule you out of order. And I think that the best use of time is to ask Mr. Nastasi questions about his testimony.
Well, Mr. Tudell certainly offered a variety of clarifications that were substantive, and I hope therefore that they are stricken from the record when it comes to evidence.
They're not going to be stricken from the record, but I'm going to instruct the board to remember that the testimony and evidence comes from the witnesses.
And when if this case was to go to some other forum, would they be stricken from the record?
The record is the record. Anything that gets taken down, anything that gets said, the reporter is taking it down. If there is
So you're reporting that to me that I'm not allowed to question substantive comments made by the attorney, and they become part of the record, and there's no distinction whatsoever. If that was to be decided in some other forum?
They're not evidence. They're not evidence. You can question the witnesses.
And if I question Mr. Tudell, you will allow order?
It's not appropriate. You're here to question the witness.
Mr. Nastasi, could you explain to us what zone this project is found in?
This project is in the B1 zoning district.
And Mr. Tudell, in the transcript itself, specifically at page 40, says it's in B2. Can you explain the difference?
There's no explanation it's in the B1 zone.
I think if I said that, I don't recall saying that, but if I did, and if I made a mistake that it's in the B1 zone, it's in the B1 zone. I believe Ms. Gregory's report indicates that it's in the B1 zone, and I believe the zoning officer's denial letter.
Well, the zoning officer certainly thought it was in B1, but you said B twice, two twice.
I am not perfect. If I made a mistake, I apologize.
Okay, I'm interested in understanding the issues associated with the building height, which you said you would have clarified by the time we got to this meeting. There was a lot of discussion about it, involving questions asked actually of the zoning officer. And what you promised was not only that you would have the exact height of this building, but also a 1475, and some way of showing the relative heights of those two bodies in a clear way that we could understand. Can you do that now for me?
No, he won't, because right now, the testimony is on, the questioning is on his prior testimony. I will have him offer new testimony this evening. So if you want to ask him questions on that after he's given that testimony, then that's fine.
Well, why are we, this is only on prior testimony.
Right, because certain people at the last hearing, I don't believe, including yourself, didn't have an opportunity because we had to cut the meeting short. So we're giving you the opportunity to ask questions on that. I'll bring him back, literally right after whoever's gone. And then if you have further questions, you can ask him then.
Do we have any further clarification before we, on the basis of what you said?
Dr. Powers, Mr. Tudell has already given you his answer. The question.
But he can't give the answer. I'm asking this man.
This is a procedural issue. It's not a substantive issue.
So, Dr. Powers, if you'd like to have him testify and ask all your questions at the end, you can, if you'd like to ask all your questions at once,
I certainly don't want a second time to do it. There's no question about that. I will certainly want a second time to ask questions. Yes, I would prefer to have the complete testimony to determine whether or not what was promised in that last meeting actually has been delivered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have any questions that were not asked? Please come. Please identify yourself, ma'am.
Debbie Eliyahu, Eliyaahu.
Any questions for last name?
No, but I read the transcript.
Okay.
1023 Garrison, Teaneck. On page 22, line 16, you said that you could see the building emerging out of the tops of trees from Windsor Road, the top few stories. The master plan speaks about low-density, low-rise buildings. First of all, how is this in any way keeping with the master plan in that regard? Is it keeping in line with the master plan?
We spoke in great detail in the
Mr. Stas,
last...
you have to hold the mic closer to you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I testified at the last meeting that we saw a need for this type of full-service building for people either downsizing from home ownership, post-college and wanting to stay in Teaneck, and also just young professionals. And we're proposing a concentrated amount of density with a full service of amenities under one roof in one building. And it was our testimony at the last hearing that we felt that there was a real community need for this type of building, and that's why we're here seeking the variances that we are.
You said the top few stories. How many stories would be visible from Windsor Road?
John, if you're going to refer to an exhibit, just, if it was previously marked, just indicate what you're referring to.
So I'm referring to what was marked as A7, and this is the view at the last meeting of our building emerging from the top of the trees from Windsor Road, and you can see the top 1, 2, 3 stories emerging above the trees.
Just for clarification, that view is on Windsor Road looking north.
Where on Windsor Road?
Can't identify I would guess maybe West Englewood is approximate avenue, but not 100% sure, but it looks like maybe the firehouse, yeah, we're looking north.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, that's the representation.
It looks more like way before.
We're not going to dispute where it's from.
It's at the intersection of Ogden and Windsor Road.
Thank you. And the building is to the east of our.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Have you done any sketches, visuals, etc., of how it would look from other viewpoints? For example, from coming along Queen Anne or looking from State Street?
Yes, at the last meeting, I presented all of the views. And board A5 shows.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about standing, for example, from Teaneck Road, how it looks. Let's say if you're on Teaneck Road, how this looks in comparison to the other buildings.
Board A8, which was presented at the last meeting, shows this view from Teaneck Road and State Street, and there's a building in the model emerging out from behind the trees.
I see. Okay. On page 26, line 6, you say it's sort of more of an urban way of living, and it concentrates parts of your life into the building. Since Teaneck is not an urban setting and it is suburban, I know that you see a need, and I read it numerous times, but does not this conflict with the fact that Teaneck is a township?
Teaneck is a township, but our site is in the heart of the downtown, and I think that it could be argued that there's good planning strategies when you concentrate residential density in the downtown. And I think if you can have a walkable neighborhood where you can live with full amenities in the downtown area and then walk to dinner, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's often understood as a good thing.
The commercial spaces in the building, the commercial spaces, they will be open to the rest of the public, is that correct?
Yes, I testified at the last
Yes.
hearing that the commercial spaces were neighborhood-based commercial spaces, and they're open to the public.
Will they not be in competition with the existing commercial ventures, and which some of which are currently struggling?
First of all, we don't know what they are yet. I mean, there's no specific tenant or use that's been identified. So I don't think you can answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, sir? Please identify yourself, sir.
Hi, Joe Cassidy, River Road, Teaneck.
Sir, can you spell your last name for me, please?
Cassidy, Cassidy, 30-year Teaneck resident. This concept of walking, I know is a very popular concept now with planning, so-called walkability. I think that's what Hackensack is basing all their plans on. Are you suggesting, therefore, that this is based on a walkability concept? And if so, where is the supermarket going to be? Where is the other things that people are going to need who don't have cars? So is this based on a walkability concept?
Yes, this building is in the downtown, and it's along the retail that's adjacent to it. So I think it is true that it's a positive thing if you can walk to the neighborhood retail. You may not solve every retail need in one building, but it's adjacent to the downtown, and I think walkability is a positive thing.
So there'll have to be a supermarket, no doubt, for people to walk to the supermarket, correct? Where would that be?
I don't, we didn't testify that there has to be a supermarket. I don't think there needs to be a supermarket. It's just one building.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Right,
you.
but they're gonna say that you didn't
Any other
testify.
questions? Again, we're asking you to, we're inviting you to ask questions about Mr. Anastasi's previous testimony.
Yes, hi.
I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eugene Nesmith, and I'm concerned, this is about the 15-story building?
Slow it down.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I rushed here and was trying to find this location for about half an hour. And I wanted to make sure that my voice got heard tonight regarding this 15-story building, and that's what...
So what's your question?
My name is Eugene, Dr. Eugene Nesmith. That's E-U-G-E-N-E. Last name Nesmith, N-E-S-M-I-T-H.
Thank you very much.
What is your question, Mr.?
My question regarding this building is, have you considered seriously the impact that that's going to have on the quality of life in North Teaneck?
Sorry, I have to interrupt.
Okay.
This is an architect.
Okay.
Your question is for our planner.
Okay, is he here tonight?
I'm not sure he's going to testify tonight.
No.
Or not going to be here in future meeting.
Okay, so
Questions related to impact on the community are specifically those that are addressed by a planner.
Okay.
Planner will be planned. The planner will be appearing, but Mr. Anastasi's testimony is about the project and the architecture of the project, the plans for the project. Your question seems to be probably better addressed by the planner.
I think it would be. I just heard him answering a question about, in terms of the downtown area and conveniences and things of that nature.
Right.
So that's why I raised that question.
I understand.
Okay, well, maybe I don't have a question for him then. Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed. Yes, ma'am. Identify yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Maria Salagianis, S-A-L-O-G-I-A-N-N-I-S. I live on Henry Street in Teaneck, and I'm very curious as to who these people are when you say "we" determined there was a need in town for a building like this. Who are we?
We are the clients who own the property and retain my office to design the building.
And based on what information did they come up with this need? Was there a questionnaire, any polling done to the residents? And why is there a need when there are so many other apartment buildings going up in the neighborhood? Why is there a need for an additional 15-story building?
Well, I can only paraphrase what my client directs me to do, but the intent of this building is to create a full-service, amenity-based building under one roof that provides a new type of housing for this neighborhood.
So the difference between your building and the others is that this is a full amenity building. It's a little bit more more elegant, it offers more services than the others? Is that the difference?
I think it's more elegant, but that's just my opinion.
It's
but
a
I
very
think-
beautiful building.
Thank you.
It's just, I don't think, in my opinion, it's appropriate for this town. But that's not my question. My question is, why does your client feel a need for this when there are so many other projects going on and so many different apartments, buildings going up?
I think the thinking was that a building that has social amenities is, I think, a new paradigm that's happening, and especially in Teaneck. So what probably separates this building from some of the other buildings is the substantial amount of social amenity space for the residents.
Okay, my next question has to do with the parking spaces. I read in the transcript that there were going to be 177 allotted parking spots. Did anyone do the math as to about how many cars you felt might be?
What was testified at the last hearing was that we 100% comply with the RSIS parking requirements for this project. So we're providing all the spaces that are required under RSIS.
Okay. Well, I did a little math, and it's very basic math because I'm really not that good at math. But my basic math skills came to a range of numbers. There are going to be 56 one-bedrooms, 69 two-bedrooms, 22 three-bedrooms. So each of these units can have anywhere from 1 to 3 cars, potentially, which gives a range of automobiles of 147 to 385. So most likely there won't be 385 cars.
Ma'am, I have to stop you right here. I have to stop you.
I just want to know if you did the math, as I did.
Now, the way that parking works, the state of New Jersey says this is the number of spaces that you can have, the maximum for a certain kind of housing product. A single-family house has a parking ratio based on the number of bedrooms in it. A mid-rise building has a parking ratio. A high-rise building has a different parking ratio. The state of New Jersey says that no land use board anywhere in the state can require any more than what the residential site improvement standards require. It's a state statute followed on by administrative regulations by the Department of Community Affairs. There are, if they don't comply with it, they need what's called a de minimis exception under the residential site improvement standards. And it is what it is. It's not.
Okay,
So the answer is, while they could, the state has done research and they say in these types of housing developments, this is the number of spaces you need.
Then are you aware that the number of spaces that you're allowing based on the New Jersey state rules are not enough to house the cars that most likely will be wanting to park?
So again.
Is that an appropriate question?
So again, first of all, we're going to have a parking and traffic expert testify next. But I think what counsel for the board was saying is that we comply with the state statute, and that's what we have to do.
Sometimes that's not enough.
Sir, Jennifer,
David Sella, S-E-L-O-E, senior president.
Did you ask questions at the last meeting of this witness?
Yes, and I wanted to follow up on one question and ask one new question.
Sir. Well, go ahead, sir.
Let's go with the new question first. I heard a comment just before that are all of the properties from State Street South already purchased for this project?
Are you asking if all the properties that are part of the project owned by the applicant?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
So everything was purchased already, everything was done?
That's correct.
Okay. The second question is, I asked a question briefly about a Sabbath elevator, Shabbat elevator. You said there was 1 out of 2 would be a Shabbat elevator. I was curious, is that going to be part of the marketing for that property?
That was not, your question in September about the Sabbath elevator was never part of my testimony. I'm only the architect.
Oh, okay.
And I think that would be part of the marketing.
I think I did, because it's in the transcript. I saw it today again.
You asked me the question in September.
Yes, and you said there would be one.
I said there probably would be one, yes.
Hold on 1 second, let the record reflect this on the subject.
But I don't think the marketing materials for the building have any implications on what this board rules on. So, he
Well, I think
indicated
the
a static elevator.
FHA has some issues about that.
What's that?
I think the FHA has some issues about that.
Okay, so, but that's not something that the zoning board would consider, and that's your opinion.
Okay, you can read the New York Times and find it there.
Next question, sir. Yes, please identify yourself. Please identify yourself to the microphone.
Art Vatsky, County City, anymore.
I'm not sure, everybody. Can you spell your last name again?
V is in Victor, T, S-K-Y. V is in Victor, A-T, S-K-Y. A-R-T.
Thank you, sir. Okay, can I ask questions about Mr. Anastasi's previous testimony?
I cannot do that because I wasn't here.
Well, I can't help you, sir. That's the way we proceed.
I can't ask, I know I don't know what to say.
No, well, I didn't say you can't ask that. I said the appropriate time will be for when Mr. Anastasi's testimony is complete. There's more questions to be asked. There's more testimony to be given. Then you can ask anything. But right now, I've asked the public to ask questions that were not covered last session. That's the way we're going to proceed. You have any questions for Mr. Anastasi's testimony?
Yes, so I have to go forward another meeting.
We may conclude tonight, it's very possible that you could do it, but right now, the procedure is, Mr. Anastasi is here first to answer questions from any members of the public that were not able to ask questions.
Why don't we want to try to ask it and see if...
Yes,
Okay.
I want to ask because I can sense that this is a developer-resident dispute. I don't have a resident-developer dispute. I have a past and future dispute. I have an energy dispute. And I want to know what facilities the building will have to protect it in terms of power outages and to provide solar power on the rooftop and to provide recharging facilities, electric recharging facilities for the vehicle. Because although it's uncommon now, 10 years will become quite common.
So let's get your questions one at a time. You asked several questions.
Yeah.
What's your first one? You asked about generator. Sir, is there capacity for generating?
Yes, I can answer his cluster of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
The building will have a generator.
Okay.
So that if there is a power outage,
Run the other end.
life safety works, handicapped people can get out the elevator, and the building will have egress lighting and all the things the building needs to exist under the a power outage. The building will also be built high efficient with the latest construction methodologies and consume the least amount of energy. So it would be a very highly efficient building. And then in the parking garage, there's accommodations for electric charging stations for the emergence of electric cars.
This is good. What about photovoltaics on the roof?
We're not proposing photovoltaics on the roof at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Identify yourself, sir.
My name is John Tavanis. What else would you like to know?
Please spell your name.
Spell your last name.
T-A-V-A-N-T-C-I-S. I live in 302 Warwick Avenue, Teaneck. And I'm listening to you and, I'm sorry?
You have to hold the microphone close to your mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm listening to you and you, for a few times you mentioned the area as being the downtown area of Teaneck. Confused. I thought downtown area was a different area. Is this something that you would like to make it into the downtown area, or?
What I was referring to is that our building is sitting here. We have the Plaza, we have Queen Anne Road, and as you know, Queen Anne Road is lined with retail and commercial. so that the residents who live in this building can walk into the neighborhood retail and commercial. And it's a very walkable area because of its adjacency to neighborhood.
So perhaps you should not be using the term downtown. Thank you.
That's not downtown. That's not downtown.
Barbara?
Members of the audience, I have to caution you, please, for a number of reasons. We ask you not to comment out loud. We have a record being kept. We have a stenographer who is very meticulous and she needs to concentrate on what's being said. So please ask you to not react to what's being said in the interest of fairness and to our staff. Please, ma'am, what's your name?
Barbara Blumberg, B-L-U-M-B-E-R-G, 1474 West Terrace Circle, Teaneck.
So there is a cluster of, I don't know, I guess retail space. One is I guess like a quick check that just opened recently. It's in that cluster of buildings. It's right across from Hito's. I think there's some other couple shops, but the proposal is to flat those buildings, right? To take them away.
The proposal is to build on my client's property from the plaza all the way through to State Street, completely across the site.
Okay, so the buildings that are already there would be demolished.
The buildings that are on the site would be demolished.
Okay, the tenants in those buildings, they would be part of the commercial space possibly? I mean, those buildings are owned by the 189, the Plaza, they're owned by them, correct?
The tenants in the existing spaces would leave before the demolition, and then
Well,
they would
obviously.
be offered the commercial space just like anybody else.
Okay.
And there are 2 commercial spaces in the building.
No, I understand. I just wanted to make sure that, okay, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Rhonda Henderson and I live on South Prospect Terrace here in Teaneck. You mentioned in your testimony that there was a need, and you gave that range from millennials to seniors who would be looking to downsize. Have you questioned that range of people to see of their interests?
I can speak for my client and as third party, but my client has done his research and feels that there is a real market need for this type of residential building. And he is willing to propose and take the risk to build this type of building because I think he believes there is a need.
So based on my knowledge of living here for 50 years, most seniors who decide to downsize are looking to move out of the town because the taxes are quite high. So I would think that if your client is looking to attract that population, they would have polled that population to make sure that there is definitely an interest.
I appreciate your knowledge and what you're saying, but we have to confine this to questions. So it may be a matter of semantics, but please reframe what you want to say in terms of the question.
Where is the evidence from the residents here in town of that need from millennials to seniors?
What I would suggest is you hold that question off for our planning testimony, because when we do our planning testimony, we have to demonstrate why the project is particularly suited for the use that we're proposing. So that'll be our planner's job to go over that, and he or she will have to go through the positive and negative criteria. So I think after that person testifies, if you disagree with what the arguments that he puts forth, I would welcome you to question him on those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Sharon Beal, 33 Hamilton Road, Teaneck, New Jersey. You made a statement, and my question is, B as in boy, E as in Every, A as in Apple, L as in Larry, Sharon. this evening and previously, you made a statement regarding the use of the facility. You initially said that it would be utilized by anyone could come and utilize it, but then you stated by the residents of the building. So I'm not clear as to who will be able to access the space if this project goes forward.
Okay, to clarify, we said two different things. The commercial spaces, there are two commercial spaces on State Street. They're open to the public, anybody can rent those spaces, and they would be community-based commercial and retail. In other words, anybody obviously can walk in to any of those commercial spaces.
It's a store.
Store, accountant's office, whatever. The amenity spaces, the event rooms, the theater room, those are for the residents.
And one other question. In thinking about the parking area, I know that you stated that it would fall within the requirements of the state of New Jersey, whatever they may be. But did you consider all the spillage into the surrounding area and the parking spaces that are already there?
Ma'am, and we have a parking expert. That'd be the proper question. Thank you. Sure.
Do I have to introduce myself again?
Well, you just,
Eugene Nesmith.
Okay.
Okay. If this project goes forward, what is the projected date of completion?
That's the most interesting question that's been asked so far.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say is that upon a zoning board approval, it would take approximately 18 months to build a building like this.
Okay. And you had mentioned as a full-service amenity facility it will be and it's kind of social amenities. Could you explain further what you mean when you make those kinds of statements? And you also said a theater room. Do you mean movies or a live theater? What specifically, please?
The social amenities are outdoor terraces, gardens, gyms, multimedia rooms to show movies, kids' birthday parties, lounges, just social program to round out the use for the residents. We did not specifically talk about live theater, not that anybody would be against it, but when I was saying theater rooms, meaning you could put a movie on or whatnot.
This may be a question for the planning board, but I'm going to try anyway. And could you specify a little in terms of, because these are going to be rental units, correct?
What kind of use, sir?
Rental units. What the rent range for these?
Did we specify
No,
what
so I was going to chime in. We didn't indicate whether it would obviously be rental or condo, but that decision hasn't been made yet. And I don't think this witness is appropriate for pricing and anything like that. I don't think it's relevant either, but yeah. So I
Hi, I just have a point of clarification. My name is Pamela.
May I identify something?
Sorry?
Identify yourself, please.
My name is Pamela Hulnick, H-U-L-N as in Nancy, I-C-K. I asked a question last time about the amenities, which was going to be answered this time. The way you're phrasing this, I'm not sure, will I still get an opportunity, since I asked a question last time, to ask him a question when we're done tonight about something he said last time, or if my questions tonight only for things that are said tonight?
Well, let's find out. What specifically was your question, and then we could
What
determine whether
percentage,
it's...
okay, what percentage of the building is going to be amenities? I had asked about, like, other than the parking spot, what percentage of actual usage space is going to be amenity space?
Combining indoor and outdoor amenity spaces, the gardens as well as the indoor spaces, it's approximately 6% of the building.
What about just the indoor spaces?
3% indoors, 3% outdoors.
Talking about total livable square feet
Total amenity space is 6% of the whole.
in terms of area?
Yes, square footage, yes.
Okay, please proceed with new testimony.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just wanted Mr. Nastasi to go over very briefly, and then I'll have the traffic engineer expand on it during her testimony, on some of the revisions he made to the parking garage that were based on comments received from the board's professionals just prior to the last meeting. So, John, why don't you do that? Point to the sheets that we're at. I think we're up to A17 in terms of exhibits. And council, I don't know if those were just the same sheets that were submitted. I don't know if we have to mark them, but it's up to you.
So, it looks like we were marking
everything.
It looks like it. You can mark, for instance, the architectural sheet with zoning data, tax map, and
So
one.
fine. So we'll mark it A17.
Could you, Mrs. Sutton, could you just slide that board a little up so you kind of work to see it? Members of the public, I realize that some of you are way in the back of the room. There's plenty of seats up front. If you'd like to see these drawings up closer, I invite you to come up closer and be able to view them.
Okay, we're going to mark two sheets. A101 will be
A17.
A17.
What's the revision date on the plan?
The revision date is October 7th.
And John, that's what was submitted to the board.
Yes, the board has this. The second sheet that I'll reference tonight is A100, which will become A18. And the revision date, again, is October 7th. And both of those are revision number 3.
So John, if you could just explain some of the interior changes that were made to the parking garage since the last meeting.
Yes. These revisions are technical in nature. It involves the construction and the slope of the parking garage, and the intent was to redesign the workings and circulation of the parking garage to better comply with the turning radius for automobiles. So it's rather technical in nature. However, with these revisions on the entry-level parking plan, as well as the lower-level parking plan, which is on A100, the turning radius for the vehicles now meets the satisfaction of the board engineer and the board parking engineer and parking planner.
Okay, and I know Mr. Vince had some comments in his letter. I'd like the traffic engineer to go through those because I think she'll be best to answer those.
Sure. Has the number of spaces changed?
No, the number of spaces has not changed. We still comply.
Okay. And John, there was a question about the height of, I guess, 1475
Yes.
Palisade versus this building. If you could just give those numbers to the board.
Yes, at the last meeting, I was asked to bring back the heights, the comparative heights between 1475 Palisade Avenue and our project. The 1475 Palisade Avenue building is 111 feet high.
We need, there's a lot of slopes here. Can you reference Palisade or Queen Anne? What is that? What is that?
From state.
From state.
And then our project.
One more time.
111 feet.
111 feet. That's the existing project.
That's the 1475 Palisade.
Right. 111 feet above State Street.
Yes.
Okay, so keep going.
Our project, 189 Plaza, is 158 feet along State Street.
And 1475 from the ground up is 7 stories of livable space?
I believe so.
7 stories?
It's either 7 or 7/1. Let me check 1 second.
7 stories of rentable.
7 residential over 1 parking.
That's wrong. And this project is 15 over 3?
This project is 15 over 3.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Do you have an elevation on that one, rather than just the height?
Our project is 12 over 3, not 15 over 3.
Well, over
You have
there.
a maximum elevation of sea level, just for comparison purposes.
I have a board here.
And that's the level that was from a certain point where we don't know what's that.
Above sea level, the neighboring building is 184 elevation.
1475 is 184 above sea level. Okay.
I'm sorry, correct that, we're reading off the drawings. 172.
Why don't y'all wait and then get it together? Because you're gonna tell us 5 different.
Sir, please. Sir,
Because it's confusing.
we're trying to straighten it out.
You're not straightening it out because
Sir,
it's 5 different things.
please, we will work this out. Let's get this straight.
172 feet for the one.
1475 is 172 feet above sea level. Okay, and now 189 Plaza, the new project proposed?
240 feet above sea level.
240
Yes.
above sea level. Okay, thank you. Hold on.
That's 2841 is.
Yeah, that's something that's not proving out here, because you stated that 189, the new project is approximately 47 feet above 1475, and now you're saying it's almost 68 feet. So
69 feet.
which is it?
It's both, because of the slope of the road. Sea level is a consistent datum.
The slope of State Street?
Yes.
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
So you weren't.
That's why the sea level is important.
So the 111 versus 158 wasn't being taken in the same spot.
They're both taken from State Street, but then State Street slopes down.
Correct.
So
The
we
sea
have-
level is the closest
I
comparison.
think we need to have some basis for comparison of two buildings as to how they will relate, wherever you're standing. I think sea level would probably be best.
Sea level is consistent datum,
Right.
and that's how you would compare the two.
Right, so I think that's the number that we should use in comparing the height of the two buildings. That's valid?
Yes.
Okay.
So is it your testimony that the top of the building is going to be, the top of your building, if it's approved as proposed, is going to be 68 feet higher than the top of 1475?
Sea level, yes.
Here's almost 70 feet tall.
Yes.
That would be the perception around it.
Do we have a comment?
Yeah, I think, just to be clear on why we indicated State Street and sea level, is that State Street would be, I think this is what is going to be talked about, so the reason you gave State Street would be the visual effect. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Yeah, but we need to be in the same point on State Street. So I think in fairness, so you can't relate the bottom of State Street to the top of State Street. So we need to have some constant index of height. That's why sea level works.
I don't have an issue with doing that. My point is that it's the visual is different than what those numbers are. That's all.
Okay, we understand. Okay, keep going.
So, John, do you have any other testimony on
It was
this?
just the parking garage
Yeah.
modifications for turning radius, and then the request for those.
Okay. And I will, just for the record, I will have Ms. Blagoff, our traffic engineer, go through the Hall's letter in more detail. But just for the record, John, would you stipulate to the technical comments set forth in the Hall's letter?
Yes.
Okay.
But you want one particular call out, any particular one?
Sure. I was just using the technical comments.
This is the letter of October 17th.
B4.
Yeah. So B4, the technical comments are 39 through 63. And then the reason I didn't reference the others yet is because several of them require testimony and we'd like to go through those.
I just want to make sure I'm deliberately on the same page.
Pages 5 through 7.
Yeah. Where Mr. Vince labels it technical comments.
Technical comments, okay. So you are stipulating that you are fine with those recommendations?
Yes. And then some of the others earlier in his report require testimony, and I'll have our traffic engineer go through those, because most of them relate to parking.
No.
Okay.
If the board acts favorably upon them, and unless they make change, I'm sorry, if the applicant makes changes to the plans, which I suspect that if they were not finished tonight, there's a chance to do so. They could make the changes and then the comments would drop off. If the board were to act favorably, these would, and they are not, and the changes have not yet been made,
Well,
they would be conditions of approval.
It's become a practice of this board when the stipulations are made to read it into the record. Okay? So I'll just go over them quickly. Some of them are self-evident. Number 39, the aisles width shall be properly dimensioned. The required township Teaneck signature blocks and legend shall be added to the cover sheet of the plan. That's for the diagrams. North aisle shall be added to the location map. A sealed copy of the reference survey shall be submitted. The survey shall be revised to depict all improvements, striping, utilities, topography, etc. The survey shall be revised to show the existing sanitary and other utility connections to the existing buildings. All traffic and handicap parking signs shall be mounted on breakaway style posts. ADA parking striping detail shall be added to the plans. The asphalt pavement detail shall be revised to indicate a 2-inch asphalt surface course, 4 inches asphalt intermediate course, and 6-inch DJ base course. Curb detail shall be revised in accordance with NJRSIS standards. Sewer and water connections shall be added to the plan. All proposed utilities shall be located underground. Some of the parking spaces are numbered incorrectly. That shall be revised. Grading shall be shown on every floor. Every drive aisle shall be dimensioned. All hatching areas shall be dimensioned. The length of the parking space will be dimensioned. The inverse type of pipe, slope, and size of proposed sanitary sewer lateral shall be shown on the plans. A one-way circulation from the vicinity of the stacked parking spaces shall be delineated. Some of the traffic circulation arrows are to be reversed and corrected. The plans shall be revised to conform to the proper ADA height clearances within the parking garage. Storm and sanitary sewer labels for the utilities in the plaza shall be revised. A stop bar and stop sign shall be provided at the exit driveway. The plan shall be revised accordingly. A right turn only and one-way signage shall be provided at the exit driveway in accordance with NUTDC-based standards. And finally, grading shall be shown to the alley outside the building. Compliant with stipulated, these will all be complied with.
Yes, and there's one other item in Mr. Vince's report that I'd like Mr. Nastasi to give some testimony on before I bring up the traffic engineer, is there was an item number, I believe it is, so you're following along, 23. So, page 4, item 23.
Okay.
Mr. Vince asked that testimony be provided explaining the operation of the proposed cross parking system.
Okay.
The parking system is the mechanical system that's located in the garage, so I'll ask Mr. Nastasi to explain how that works. Go ahead, John.
Okay. On sheet 100, which is the lower level, the basement parking plan, one section of the building has a sign.
Yeah.
So just mark that 819, I think.
Been marked in.
Oh, no, mark this.
So that sheet hasn't changed?
It's still 818 from 15 minutes ago. We just marked it in.
Oh, so it's sheet A100.
8100, correct.
Sorry.
So, as part of the parking layout, we have assigned parking spaces that are in a stacked configuration.
So, but if you're going to talk about that sheet, let's mark that one.
This is 819 now, right? This will be a new sheet.
Yes.
G106, which will be 819.
And that was also submitted, that's part of the board's packet.
And what G106 is a drawing of the stacked parking system. The manufacturer's name is Klaus, and essentially what it is, it's a stacking automated parking system, so that when you're a resident in the building, you're assigned a parking space, you probably have a fob, you pull into the garage, call your space, and you pull into a parking space. And throughout the time that you're there, these cars are being moved by lifts so that other people can park in the spaces as well. So you get a double efficiency of parking in the amount of space that's allocated.
So this is not required, you can do it, it's automatic by the resident?
It's designed so that any resident can work the system. You're essentially pulling into a parking space and you don't have to worry about any of the mechanisms.
But I guess, John, no employee has to be present for you to do it.
No, it's automated.
Okay.
Does the generator have sufficient power to manage that system?
Yes, and also this system has manual override as well.
Okay. What happens if someone pulls in, or someone gets their car and just leaves it there? comes down, or will it continue to circulate, or?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like someone could have their car delivered, it's not like the jigsaw system that...
This system is sort of foolproof. If you leave your car where number 3 is, the bottom system moves back and forth, and the next person who comes in is allocated a space, and it all just keeps moving around.
So there's no situation where someone could ask for their car, it gets delivered, and then they don't pick it up, and it blocks the whole system up?
The system would not get clogged in that respect.
Okay.
And how long would it take if I parked my car and wanted to pick it up from the time I make the request to the time I can come again?
So unlike an automated parking garage where a machine comes and takes your car away, in this system, your car is either here at ground floor or it's lifted up 8 feet in the air. So it's not disappearing up into another building. So you can see your car at all times. A fully automated garage is where it takes the car and brings it somewhere. This is a much simpler system.
That's what I put. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah. In the graphic that we have in front of us, it seems to show an arrow pushing the cars to the side and not just up and down.
Both. On the lower level, the cars can move left and right and up and down. On the mezzanine level, it just moves up and down.
Is this the entire parking system?
Now, this is only, if you go back to A100, on the lower level, in our set of assigned spaces, it's only in it's in the section that's assigned, so that no visitors or transient people would need to use the cloud system. Only residents who are accustomed to parking every day.
How many of these total? How many of these spaces are?
There's 47 Klaus assigned spaces.
So residents will always be using that, or?
It would only be used by residents, not by visitors.
That's my question.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I don't have clarity on how this thing works. You say you could park on the mezzanine? Well, what is the mezzanine?
You always pull your car into a parking space.
Okay.
Now, when you leave, it may lift your car up to a mezzanine 8 feet high, but it is of no concern to you because you're always pulling in to a parking space.
Okay, so you're saying that the car still can be shifted left and right by this mechanism?
Yes, as well as up and down.
So if you park in okay, so what's the longest it would take if you were parked in the furthest point of this parking mechanism to get your car out? If your car has been rotated around the system and you're then up left.
If we're in a 10-car section of Klaus, and I come out of the elevator and I hit my fob, my car's ready in a minute or 2.
So by that diagram, you have one set of. Go back. No. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. So you have one bank at the top of 7 or 14 spaces.
Yes.
And then we just pointed on the side, you have 8 or 16?
9, and then this section.
18 total spaces.
8 and 8 over here.
Or 16. So those are just kind of used, they're not going to rotate around.
Right.
Okay. So
John, and there's also, if you look at the plan, if you could just explain the whole concept of the phantom space that facilitates the movement.
Right, much like the puzzle where there's always a piece missing, if you have a bank of 7 Klaus spaces, 7 times 2 is 14, 13 cars going on. You always have one less car so that the system can function.
And it always rotates so it drives back into an empty space?
Yes.
The empty space has to be on the bottom, is that correct?
Yes.
And how does the system operate, or how does it function to ensure that there isn't a space, that there is always a space? Someone just doesn't pull in. How does that happen?
With gates and fobs.
So when you get into the garage,
yes, you'll call for your space.
Okay.
And John, just also for the record, that phantom space is not being counted by us as a parking stall.
Yes, we don't count that space. Thank you.
Will the cloud spaces be assigned to particular specific tenants, so that it's not you have a cloud space, you have a space in this particular bank?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself knowledgeable to be able to tell us how long this has been in existence and how well it works?
We have used Klaus in several of our projects. We've seen other projects that have Klaus systems. This system's been around a significant amount of time, a decade.
Decade?
Yeah.
And from your knowledge of existing systems, it functions well and accomplishes what you would...
Yes, we have vetted out multiple automated parking systems, and we work predominantly with Klaus. And then to your question, when you go to a more automated, fully automated system, there's another company for fully automated systems, but for these kind of semi-automated systems, the Klaus system is the industry standard.
Do you see any problems with this system?
No.
Has it broken down in any way? Has it,
There's maintenance programs. We've interviewed the maintenance system people for Klaus. We've had them at our studio. We've visited buildings, and there's a maintenance contract that the landlord gets into.
Okay.
So one question on that. So let's say after
We can't hear you. Is your mic on? That. You gotta hold it.
So let's say 3 people are arriving home at the same time. Presumably then they would have to wait until the cars in front of them got appropriately allocated their slot. Is that right?
Yes. If 3 people are arriving at the same time, all in the same bank of spaces, then they would wait 1 to 2 minutes each cumulatively to park. Yes.
I believe that concludes my direct for Mr. Nastaza.
okay, I'm gonna, any other questions, members of the board?
So just wait 1 second. I have a question. With the class system, so if, like, let's say you have a bank of 5 of them, and 5 people are gone, so then all the bottom spaces are empty. Can you just pull into any one, or you have to pull into one certain space?
There's a gate system, and you'll be assigned 1 space.
Okay, any questions, members of the public? Again, we're asking you to confine yourself to testimony given by Mr. Nastaza tonight.
Okay, Eugene Messmith again. How many total parking spaces does that system has?
There are 47 total Klaus spaces in the garage.
Okay, I'm just saying, that we're only talking about for this particular building, only 47 spaces for parking?
No, 47 automated spaces.
Okay, and are there other parking that's in there that's not automated?
Yes.
And how many total parking spaces do you have?
177.
177 total spaces. So the 47 is a subset of the 177.
Okay, for the unit.
Debbie Eliyahu. You were talking before about the roof garden. Does that preclude any ground level green spaces?
The building at grade is 100% lot coverage, so all the gardens and terraces are up on the different levels. There will be none at grade.
Is there any play area allotted for children to play, like a playground?
Yes, on the there are.
Okay. How big are those? May I ask?
Yes. There's a 3,300 square foot amenity terrace, open amenity terrace on the main amenity floor plan. And then if we move up, the private terraces are here, but on the roof, which is the uppermost, we have 5,500 square feet of terrace there on the roof.
But that terrace is gardens or?
I think the question is, tell me if the question is, do you have any dedicated play space for children? Is that your question?
Yes.
We have a mix of everything. And we have ping pong tables, grass areas, sitting areas, play spaces, fire pits. We have a good mix of everything.
I'm kind of asking, is there some place that's dedicated, let's say, for littler children?
Not 100% dedicated, but not prohibited either.
Well, let's see if we can get this something more defined. Do you have an area that would be normally associated with children, for example, swings and
Not fire pits.
swings, other dedicated, you would normally find in a park, let's say? Do you have anything like that?
We do not have swings. We don't have swings on the terraces.
Okay, Ms. Holmes, would you ask the question?
I think what Ms. Eliyahu is asking you is if you have a dedicated space that would be defined as a playground for 4 to 10-year-olds. That's what she's asking you.
We do
Or
not have
even younger. Or even younger.
We don't have a dedicated space as a dedicated playground.
And what kind of actual amenities do you expect these children to use? That's what she's asking you.
Thank you.
She's asking you for swings, playground, seesaws, those type of things. That's what she's asking you for.
I understand her question. And we don't have a dedicated playground. We don't have swings and seesaws.
So in other words, your answer is no, Ms. Eliyahu. They don't have anything provided for the children of Teaneck.
Okay, thank you.
Pamela Holnick, H-E-L-N-I-C-K. I'm actually going to follow up on that question first, but even if they had those dedicated playgrounds for children, it wouldn't be for the children of Teaneck. It would only be dedicated playgrounds for the children of the people living in the building.
That's correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Okay. Which actually means that, not so much for the children, but the downtown concept that you spoke of earlier is a little misleading here, because it seems like with all this amenity space inside the building, people might use the outside of the building space less frequently.
What's your question, ma'am?
Yeah, that was a question. I inflected the end.
Your question, you're making a comment.
Well, I'm asking that, because I'm actually asking the difference, because to me, what you were describing before seemed to be that you wanted people to be going outdoors and walking around the area, maybe they'd use less cars because they could go shopping and walking and everything else. But as far as the amenities go, for example, Boutique Park, which is nearby.
Ma'am, this is sort of like the TV show Jeopardy. You have to frame everything in a question.
I am.
I don't think
I haven't finished it yet, that's all. What I was going to say was, is it your anticipation, because of the amenity space, that it's still going to have this sort of downtown feel, where people will be going out and about in the community more, or will that be more indoor use, I guess, I guess an indoor space is the amenities.
I think, like any vibrant neighborhood, there'll be a mix of both.
Just point of order. I don't mind clarifying things that were at the last meeting. I mean, we want to be respectful of everybody's questions, but at this point, I thought the questions were just going to be of the testimony that he gave this evening. Again, if there's a simple clarification.
You did talk about amenities and space and outside space today, so I think it's appropriate to ask those questions. Let's move on.
Okay. You showed the drawings earlier. The one I was thinking of specifically is the one from Ogden Street. Do you have any drawings that you drew that don't take place in the summer with full foliage? Because I'm sort of curious, like in the winter when there's not leaves on all the trees and everything else, what it might look like then, or in the 3 seasons when there's not a lot of trees.
Our renderings were showing foliage.
Okay, so there's not any other way. One more question. Parking. You mentioned earlier that the 177 parking spots comply with the law, which I understand. But is there a maximum, or is that a minimum?
There's no maximum. The applicant is entitled to, we can't require more.
I understand that. But they could put more in if they want.
Absolutely.
I want to just cut that. All right, thank you.
Melanie Gonzalez with a Z at the end, Gonzalez. I live on Edgewood Avenue in Teaneck. I had a question about the class system.
What are the maximum number of cars that would be parked in each system?
Okay. There's 3 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces means 13 cars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 means 17 cars. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meaning 15 cars.
Okay, so there's a potential then if somebody parked in the 17-spot class system could, when they're leaving to work or coming home from work, could have to wait for 16 other cars to get either in or out of the system.
Yes.
And just understand, what's the maximum amount of time? I come to my car, I come to the back of 17 or 18 spaces, and my car is the furthest away. What's that time period look like?
It's anywhere from seconds to 2 minutes to get your car. And if it was the mathematical zeitgeist of 17 cars coming home at the same exact time, it would probably be 17 times anywhere from a couple seconds to 2 minutes.
And that could potentially be people coming and going.
Absolutely.
Right. And regarding the 177 parking spaces that are in the garage, are those all for residents or are some of those for the potential stores that could be in the building?
There's no assignment for commercial, but in the RSIS calculations, it allows a calculation for visitors.
Okay, so 177 aren't necessarily just for the people who live there.
That's the required by our RSIS.
So any visitors or people shopping at those stores would probably potentially have to park somewhere else in the plaza.
I think on that specific issue of how RSIS works, if you ask the traffic engineer, you'll probably get a better answer. But yes, the visitors are inclusive in the parking requirement, just like employees are counted in retail parking requirements and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Teresa Edwards, THERISEEDWARDS. Okay, what was the determining factor for deciding to use this cloud system for this building? I know you said you've used it in others, but what was it?
It's efficiency.
Okay, so tying the efficiency, are you talking about efficiency in terms of getting people in and getting people out?
I think efficiency in terms of space. So I think the large open parking lot is probably going away, and automated parking systems allow more cars to park in the least amount of square footage. It's better environmentally, it's better from a cost perspective. It just allows for a more efficient parking system.
Okay, so speaking of the environmental issue, since this is a mechanized system, it uses more energy.
Use electricity.
Yes, it uses, electricity. So going back to your response to Mr. Batsky's question about this being the highest efficiency building, what is that based on? Is this a USGDC LEED building?
We're not proposing a LEED building.
Okay, so then what are you basing that statement on, that it's of the highest efficiency?
On the buildings that my office builds, and technology and building envelopes and building science and the high efficiency mechanical systems, high insulating windows, air tightness, R values, all the things that we integrate into our buildings.
Okay, and that includes this cloud system, but it is not going to be a LEED building?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Linda DiCarlo Burns, DeCarlo-BURNS, Bourbon Street. So this cloud system, did you say it was going to be on the absolute lowest level of the building?
The cloud system is on the basement plan, the basement parking plan, not at street level.
Okay. So I had read from one of the engineering letters to the Zoning Board of Adjustment dated August 14th that there was some concerns about flooding in the area. So if the cars are going to be
rotated down or around, what would happen on a rainy day in a flood? Like if the building were to get some water in there?
I think that's sort of a rhetorical question because our building is designed to not allow the water into the building, and we had initially proposed stormwater detention tanks, and it was suggested by the town engineers that we really don't need them. Our building is being built to keep the water out, and it's not a porous building that will let the water in during a rainstorm.
Okay, because in this particular document, there was, they were concerned about signage indicating that the first floor of the building may flood, and that sign was shown in the plans.
Yeah, that's been corrected.
That's been corrected. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mickey Chelan, M-I-C-K-I, S-H-I-L-A-N, 811 Club Road. Okay, this is the first time I'm talking in front of this Board of Adjustment. I'm on the Senior Advisory Board, and I represent about 500 seniors that live in this town. And I listen to what they have to say.
Hold on.
So,
My question
Wait,
is,
you have to be careful when you say you represent us.
well, we get, okay.
we understand that you can't represent other people, but you can ask the same question that you were going to ask.
Okay.
But I just want to make it clear that we can't, unless you're an attorney, you can't represent other people.
Okay, use
So,
the wrong word.
but to say, but then that's all I wanted to say. You can ask
Okay.
the exact same question. You can tell us if you do, but
All right, you can do what you want. I talked to 500 people at our senior center.
These are legal proceedings,
Okay.
ma'am, and you can't represent something.
No, I just go by what they say.
That's your question, it'll be
Okay.
no less important.
Okay. You are expecting a lot of the seniors in town, when they sell their house, to move into your particular building. Now, now you are talking about this Klaus type of moving cars around. I don't know if you know that seniors have trouble working their telephones, never mind working something that will bring their car up and bring their car down, and where their car is located. So I think that's a problem right there. And I'm just wondering, is this type of system, could we go to someplace and see how it's working, like Fort Lee or someplace like that where they have this system?
I would be able to, through the attorney, give you a series of buildings that this class system is already installed, yes.
You don't know of one right offhand?
I do know one right offhand.
Okay, because it would be nice to see. I'm used to holding a microphone in my hand.
14th and Park Avenue in Hoboken has a large class system installed.
No, I could hold it. I'm used to holding it. I perform,
That's
so I'm used to holding a microphone this close.
just so, the
All right.
reason is because the court reporter is trying to take down all the questions, and we can't have a conversation between someone who's not at the mic.
And also, just to be clear, he can identify buildings where he knows the cloud system is. He obviously can't authorize you to go into private property and look at things, but I'm sure, just because I know there's interest in the cloud system, Mr. Nastasi, is there a website or something that people can go to see how it looks?
Yes, there are videos on the web of the cloud system and how it works. So you could start by looking on the web, and if you want to visit those buildings, we'll forward addresses.
All right, so the closest one you're saying now is in Hoboken, is that it?
No, the closest one that I know of by memory, because I was asked to cite an address by memory, is in Hoboken, but I can get addresses for buildings. in New Jersey.
Okay, I just think it would be nice to see it. Okay, how it works. Okay, thank you very much. Have that be my turn.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Tanya, Tanya, Pagan, Pagan, Raggio, Raggio, Ashland, Ashley, and I live in Teaneck. Good evening, Mr. Nastasi. I have 3 questions. The first, and follows up with the woman who spoke before me, has to do with seniors. Your testimony has indicated that many of the amenity areas, particularly for exercise, yoga, etc., these are your words, are for healthy people. Can you explain to us, since this building is also supposed to be for seniors who may be downsizing, and the average senior, all the seniors I know, not just the average, but most of the seniors I know, and that is defined as a person who's 60 or over, usually have some medical issues or challenges, along with some maybe disabilities. So can you explain to me how these amenity areas will be able to be utilized by them, since you use the term for helping people? You can go back to your testimony.
The amenity spaces
Yes.
are fully handicap accessible. So whether they're a lounge, whether you're playing mahjong, watching TV, meeting your friends, drinking scotch, sitting out in the garden, these are spaces that anybody can use. And I don't know if they preclude ambulatory people or elderly people with a disability from using, because the building fully complies with the American Disabilities Act. So I don't think handicapped people or elderly people are precluded from using any space in the building.
Okay, I don't think that answers I'm looking at the board, I don't think that quite answers my question. I would ask the board to look back at his testimony where he indicates those areas are for healthy people, and I'll go to my next question, because I know I can only ask questions. So, my next question has to do with your experience in building these types of buildings in specifically suburban communities like Teaneck. I would like you to just name for us one community where you have built a 15-story structure where there are no other 15-story structures, and that the closest structure is only 6 stories. Just name me one community where you've done that in New Jersey.
I have not built a building under those conditions.
Thank you, sir. My last question is, I would like to know, because you repeated this many, many times, that the owners of this building who engaged you spoke to many people in the community. And again, you can look back at your testimony, you said that multiple times. I would like to know, and certainly we may not have this answer for this evening, which leaders in the northeast corridor of Teaneck the owners spoke with. I am the wife of a pastor. I would like to know which pastors the owners spoke with in the northeast section of our community. I'd like to know what leaders from our different block associations the owners spoke to in our community. I think you get the picture. You may not know the answer, but you mentioned that, so by your mentioning it so many times that the owners spoke to many people in the community, I think we have a right to know who they spoke to, and included in that list is I'd like to know if they spoke to any members of our town council, any members of this board, or any other board. Do you have that, any knowledge to that at this point, or for the future?
I could represent that. I know my client did meet with people in the community.
I'm sorry, I need you to slow down a little bit.
Sure.
So
please hold on, sir. So first of all, I know my client did meet with members of the community. I don't know specifically which ones. With that being said, the bottom line when we come before this board is whether we meet the statutory test for a D variance, and that's really the bottom line. It's not a contest of who the client spoke to, what people said. It's whether we meet the statutory test for a variance and for site plan. and things of that nature. And I think the fact that there's a lot of participation in this hearing and in this application, a lot of the feelings of members of the public are going to be heard by the board, and there's going to be comment that's made, and the board's going to be able to take that into consideration.
So let's just sir, Mr. Sazi,
Is that allowed testimony?
Do you have the answer to that question?
No, I think Mr. Tavella is answering that question.
So your question is zero none?
Excuse me, is that allowed
Sir,
testimony?
sir,
You said an
sir.
hour ago it wasn't allowed.
It's not, sir, hold on. One at a time, please. And
So your testimony.
My answer to that question is that my client directs me to do things based on his research.
You don't know the details of.
I do not know the details of
Okay,
who and what.
Mr. Tubell is representing.
Sir, you have control. I know you want to
Mr.
talk.
Tubell is
Stand behind
representing
you.
what his client has instructed him. Are you prepared to have your client testify if you would like to know those details?
I'm happy to have my client testify on operational issues that were brought up, and things of that nature. If you have those questions and he wants to answer them, that's fine. But again, it has no bearing on the statutory criteria that the board has. But there's no secret. So if you want to ask him when he's testifying and he's willing to answer, that's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Resigman, make sure I have a point of clarification with you and the attorney. That is not what I asked. I have great respect for all the people on this board and for our town council. I want those questions answered.
Well,
no, wait, let me
you have
finish.
to run- you have- go ahead.
Sir, with all due respect, okay? All due respect. I do not believe it is appropriate for the attorney to answer in the way that he did. It was evasive. I specifically asked about the Northeast community by Mr. Nasazi mentioning games such as Mahjong, mentioning that he has a Shabbat elevator, which I respect. I have members of my family who are Jewish. I trained with Jewish colleagues, so I know the importance of a Shabbat elevator in emergency. You can't do that. You can't testify about one religious group, not address the other religious
Please
groups
don't
in our
instruct-
town. I'm sorry,
Please
sir.
don't instruct us on what we can allow and not. We have counsel.
No, not you, not you. I meant him.
You have made your
Hold
point.
on. I know you're
No,
passionate
hold on,
about
I'm sorry.
this,
You're
but
right.
she's also passionate about her job as a stenographer. She can't hear two people at the same time.
You made your point. Your point is noted. I've asked the attorney if he is prepared to have his client testify about the research he did. Doesn't mean he has to answer that question. Is he prepared? Yes. He doesn't have to give you the specific questions. He can say, I don't know, or you can defer. It's not obligated to answer those questions. If he doesn't answer those questions, we'll take that into account. But no one is obligated to answer the questions that you ask. We do our best to do it. We do our best to give you the information you want, but no one's obligated to answer your specific questions if we don't have that answer.
That's fair. Can I ask this one thing? Can I ask the members of this board to investigate that issue? And I will be asking the town council to do the same. Fair enough?
Your question is well noted.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to take a break of 10 minutes right now. Our court reporter needs a break. We need a break. We're going to reconvene in 10 minutes, and I need 10 minutes. So please don't go too far. 8:50 is when we're going to gavel the meeting back to order. So again, please don't go too far. We'd like to get this going. We probably will not be going past 10:30 at the latest. For those of you expecting good welfare at 9 o'clock, we're going to delay till the end of the meeting or whenever that meeting is terminated for the night. So thank you. 10 minutes to break.
Well, yes, in fact, precisely because very often people who have conflict that they have
Please proceed.
Yeah, we're back on the record.
Okay.
Arvansky, ART, VAT, SK1. Okay, I'm trying to catch in with some of the past recent remarks. My issue is with flooding. In the history of New Jersey, thousands of cars were flooded. Now, I don't see how you can drive into a
Sir, please be careful not to give testimony as much as ask a question.
The question is, how can you drive cars into a parking space that's below grade and not risk flooding?
I think there are parking garages built below grade everywhere.
Yes.
All the time, and it's common practice. I think if you build below grade, that doesn't automatically mean it's flooded. You build with waterproofing technologies.
I don't know of any solution that would fit that, but...
Well, let's ask the question this way.
Okay.
So, can you envision a scenario where the basement garage is what?
Where a basement garage would flood?
You have the basement of your building. Can you envision a scenario, what type of storm, what type of circumstances would produce a flood in your basement?
You're going to
Hold on.
hold on. Perhaps, Mr. Duval, you're having an engineer testify?
No, since it's 100% law coverage. And we were able to address all of Mr. Vitz's questions, but I think the answer is, Mr. Nastasi, is the below-grade parking designed is it flood-proof to avoid any sort of flooding within the garage?
Yes, the building is being designed to be flood-proof.
But again, I think for the public's sake, can you envision a scenario where your system would fail and you would have a flood? If the answer is no, answer no.
I think it's a hypothetical question. I think
Okay, how about this? Is the building designed to accommodate the 500-year storm? Would the garage flood in the 500-year storm?
Yes.
Not that it needs to accommodate, but that's not a hypothetical.
under the condition that the garage door is down, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
If
the
the garage
next,
door were up, water would be in place.
It's like any basement.
okay, so the door is up, it can flood. Next question. You specifically, I asked you about energy, and you said this is the most energy efficient, this is the best you could have, and all sorts of that. Well, in the building industry, you probably know this, they have LEED standards, L-E-E-D. You did not use that phrase. So I'm concerned that this is a inaccurate or inadequate statement. We should be LEED standard for the building.
I'm not sure what your question is, sir.
Well, I asked before if it's safe for flooding, and he said, or if it's energy efficient, and he said it's the most energy efficient. Well, that's like telling somebody.
Well, sir, you can't cite the record. You don't have the record in front of you. What is your question?
That in terms of energy, there are certain LEED standards that apply all over this country. And should apply to Teaneck.
So the LEED certification process is something that the applicant has to actively seek. I don't know Mr. Nastasi's, I think Mr. Nastasi's testimony was they were not going to seek certification. Mr. Nastasi, is the building designed with environmentally sensitive design? Could it be certified?
The building is designed for progressive energy concerns. That doesn't mean you get LEED certification. LEED certification is a filing process for material procurement, but it does not mean only LEED buildings can be energy efficient. LEED is a subset of energy efficient buildings. Energy efficient buildings are not a subset of LEED.
I think since there's a level of ratings, it's gold and platinum and other things, they are the most progressive.
No, they're not.
So I'm going to have to ask you to define the question, not justify.
also been asked about this, what's this parking system called?
The Klaus system.
How does the parking system, the car system, fit with the recharging of electric vehicles? Is that?
The electric charging parking spaces are not in the section that's Klaus. However, Klaus system accommodates electric charging stations if we were to put the electric charging stations in the Klaus spaces.
I won't go further than that at this time. I think there's not going to be flooding for parking. And there's a better system than LEED for energy and building.
Again, I would ask that.
I just want to make sure I understand the responses.
The board isn't going to respond to what you, if you're asking the board to characterize the testimony, I don't think that's appropriate. If you're done asking questions, I mean, there are.
I'm not asking the board to confirm. I'm just trying to make sure that the language that I understand is what you understand.
So worry about what we understand. Just tell us what your question is, okay?
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Now, please press the microphone there because she's here. Okay. Thanks, sir. Ma'am, do that first, okay?
Identify myself again?
Yes.
My name is Rhonda Henderson. You need my location of residence?
We're good.
Okay. So you said that you would like to attract seniors, right? So is there studies that have been used for the justification of this parking system where seniors live in buildings that have these parking systems to ensure their safety? Have there been any reported incidents with the seniors with these parking systems? Because as the lady said, and not to be negative against seniors, they are sometimes challenged with new technologies.
That's completely understandable. Remember, only a percentage of the assigned parking spaces are the Klaus system, only a percentage. With that said, the Klaus system, if you didn't know it existed, you're pulling into a parking space. Where that Klaus system takes your car when you go upstairs, it really has no bearing on if you're technologically savvy or not. And obviously the system has to be designed for people who are technologically savvy and people who aren't technologically savvy. And it's just part of their business plan. But the Klaus system is a pretty straightforward system. But zooming out a little bit, only 47 parking spaces are Klaus of the 177 total parking spaces.
So is there a possibility that of those allowed numbered parking spaces, seniors could possibly be assigned those parking spaces?
I'm the architect and not the building maintenance guy, management guy, but I think that's probably an option. I don't.
Yeah, don't testify with the developer.
Exactly.
Well, how he will. Can you give us, Mr. Cruvel, can you tell us, for example, if somebody want to, if you can't answer the question, tell us. If a resident were assigned one of these spaces and they felt it would be challenged and appropriate, could they decide that they would not like that space, or do they have an option?
I mean, that sounds practical to me, but that's more of an operational question that I think you
So
ask the developer.
could you discuss
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
future with your client and perhaps let us know whether a resident would have the option to say, I can't deal with that kind of space, or I don't want that kind of space, I want a traditional parking space?
That's a fair operational question.
And you said that this type of system has been in place for at least 10 years.
I was actually incorrect, 15 years.
15 years. And out of that time of 15 years, has there been any reported issues of malfunctioning or anyone being in jeopardy of harm due to the system?
Are you aware, John?
I'm not aware of anybody in jeopardy. The only thing we've studied is maintenance issues, maintenance programs, what has to be done on a yearly basis to keep the buildings.
I'm an insurance broker, so I can ask the question this way. Are you aware of any incidences where someone has been hurt or someone has suffered damage or their car suffered damage because of the system?
I'm not aware of that.
Thank you.
Is that something that we can ask that?
You would have to probably refer to the manufacturer.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
How you doing? My name is Michael Chambers. Been here 25, 26 years. I live 32 Van Buskirk Road. And my thing is with the claw system. If you look, if any of y'all pull out your phones right now and you look up the claw system, it's not for seniors at all. It's not for handicapped. It's not for people with wheelchairs. It's not for people with walkers. It's not for, you know it, right? It's not for none of them. It's not even no space for them to get in their car.
Sir, you have to ask a question. I think, by the way, not to cut you short, you have a relevant point of view. I believe that Mr. Duval has already represented with his client that he would come back and tell us whether or not future residents would have the option to say, I don't want that kind of space.
Okay, no problem.
Right.
But still, if you're making this for seniors and everybody else, it shouldn't just be for millennials. You understand what I'm saying?
No, I
don't. I'm a senior. Don't get me wrong. I may look good, but I'm a senior. But I'm gonna let you know. All I'm saying is that if you're gonna make a building, make it 50-50 for the millennials. Don't kick our seniors to the curb. That's what I'm saying.
Again, this is the architect. He can't.
Right. He's the architect. He's
You made
building
a
the
good
building.
point. You couldn't point, and the developers here.
Okay, one more question with the claw system.
Okay.
And everything breaks down. I just want to know, when it do break down, how long do it take for somebody's car to be able to get their car once it breaks down?
Okay, he's asking very good questions. The handicap spaces, which meet the handicap requirements, are not part of the cloud system.
Okay.
And as I testified earlier, if the cloud system were to electronically break down, there's a manual override to get the cars.
Okay. Thank you.
If you have to resort to the manual override, who would be expected to do that since you say it's not operated by an individual?
So what we understand from the cloud system is either if there's a building maintenance person, he knows how to do the manual override. We've also questioned class about if we have to call the cloud system, just like a broken elevator. How long is it until they arrive on site? So it's very much like a broken elevator in a building.
Well, that's my question. And do you have an idea of how long it would get somebody to make it up and operational?
It's basically same-day service.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Henry Pruitt, and I'm speaking for myself. I don't represent anybody.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt. Go ahead.
I'd like to point out the fact that the building is going into a very congested area. There are at least potentially 700 units of rental in that same space within 2 blocks. The NJ Transit informed us that they're not going to add any more buses. The idea of driving to New York is out of the question because Teaneck Road is congested now. Route 4 only has 2 lanes in Teaneck.
Dr. Pruitt.
There's a bridge toll, and there will be a toll when you get to downtown New York.
Dr. Pruitt,
my question to this group is this company willing to provide a jitney bus to Hackensack Railroad or the Inglewood to take up for the fact that you're not going to be able to use
I don't think
it?
it's a good question. It's not appropriate for the architect. Mr. Duval, would you get this information from the developer, your client, and come back perhaps at a future meeting?
No, it's a good operational question that we can come back with.
Dr. Pruitt, is that satisfactory to you? Thank you. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Hood, Franklin Road. My question pertains to the parking system. I'm interested in the capacity of the system. Are there limitations with regard to any limitations with regard to the length, height, or in that service?
The way the system is being designed and drawn, it's for SUVs and minivans, so it's the system that allows for the larger size vehicles.
So do you have any specifics with regard to the weight and length of a vehicle?
Yes, we could provide all of that, but it's not to limit. You can get those class systems where You cannot have minivans and SUVs, but the size we're providing is for all standard vehicles. We can provide all those specifications.
Just, if I can, no for the Suburban?
What's that?
A Suburban? A Chevy Suburban?
Type of car.
It can hold up to a Range Rover.
Range Rover, but that's not a three-row SUV.
What's that?
They're not necessarily three-row SUVs, the really big ones. I think that's the gentleman's question. Because some people have big cars.
My sense from an operational standpoint that if somebody is driving a Chevy Suburban, they might be assigned a spot that's not in the class system. That would be a practical solution to that.
Okay, but you still don't have any specifics with regard to the weight restrictions or length restrictions?
Not offhand, no.
Yeah, again, just to remind everybody, the developer and the architect has not said that every one of the spaces is going to be put in a system. There's a limited amount, about 30%. If a car, I would imagine, if a car that's a 50 system, it would have to be accommodated elsewhere.
Okay, so just let me follow up with regard to assignment of parking. So as a potential resident, do I have any say over where I
don't think he has that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an operational question.
Again, good question about operations, and we'll reserve it for the future, but the architect can't answer that question.
Sharon Beal. One quick question. Noise. How loud is the cloud system?
It's an electric system that's relatively quiet.
Dorothy Bing, B-I-N-G, 27 years resident on Teaneck. I just want to know what percentage of seniors, based on your study, do you think would occupy this building?
Mr. Nastasi didn't do a study, so he I don't think he can answer that.
There's no way for him to testify that. That's not his area.
Okay.
Good question. Again, good question. Maybe for the developer, what percentage does he or does his company perceive as seniors? He can guess. I don't know if he can answer or give you a firm answer, but it's a good question.
Yeah, because we have a large population of seniors, and it's not enough housing for seniors. But that's not a question.
Okay.
My other question is, what is the attraction for seniors in a building like this? You're going to have millennials and seniors?
Again, I think that's more of a question for the developer's mindset on the property.
I agree. Yeah.
If you have a question,
but the architect is not, it's not his area of expertise. He's given a program to design a building by the owners, and that's what's done. He can't really testify as to the kind of question you're asking, but it's a good question.
Chuck Powers, 1374 Academy Lane in Teaneck. Page 99 of the transcript, Mr. Natasi, do you remember having said that you were going to do a shadow study for this meeting?
Yes, I don't have a shadow study for this meeting.
You didn't do what you said you were going to do?
Not yet.
I see. When you were asked about bringing the building down in the number of floors, you said that you would be discussing that with your team and have the results here at this meeting. Is that right?
The results were not presented at this meeting. We have not resolved that yet.
So another promise that I made, then?
I don't think that the characterization is appropriate.
Well, that's my characterization.
Okay.
I want to talk, I am completely confused, totally confused about what you understand to be the difference between an architecture question and a maintenance question, an architecture question and a construction plan. Could you describe where that break point occurs, where you stop, your expertise ends, and maintenance takes over, or operational questions take over? Because a variety of questions that seem to me to be something that would it not be the case, for example, that figuring out what was going to happen to snow on all these terraces would be something the architect should have taken into consideration, but which you just pushed off as a maintenance question?
No, I think to properly answer that question, who's shoveling the snow and when is not a question for the architect. it's an operational question. I don't think I can promise that that snow is going to get shoveled on Tuesdays if
That's
I'm
not my
not.
question. That's not my question. Have you taken in your architectural plan account of the fact that we can get very serious snow that would have to be removed in ways that would not damage other parts of the community?
So the difference between an architectural response and a maintenance response, the architect would make the terrace waterproof and make sure the splashing to withstand wind-driven rain, snow, accumulation of snow. That's an architectural answer.
And have you
Have
done
I
that?
flashed the building?
Have you done that with your building?
When we do construction drawings, we will.
Ah,
But now
well, that's the other question.
let me finish your question. A maintenance question is who's shoveling, who's sweeping?
That was your question, that wasn't mine. My question was, have you built this, designed this building in such a way that the control of snow and its impact on other surrounding properties would be well protected if well maintained? And you have all...
Sir, you answered the question.
Okay, fine.
Can you answer that question?
Your question is our building going to protect the neighbors from snow? Is that what your question is?
No, my question
What's
is,
your
have you
question?
designed the building so a well-maintained terrace, et cetera, would allow snow to be protectively taken care of?
Yes.
Can you explain how?
It'll be flashed, waterproofed, the sills will be set against wind-driven rain and snow, all the basic standard procedures.
And that's same for rain?
Yes, drainage, built-in drainage, the terraces won't let water run off the property line. It'll collect the rainwater, tie it into the storm leader, the leader will tie it into the sewer. Those are standard procedures.
And those have been designed in your building, they're not part of the construction plan?
Those get integrated into the building during construction drawings, and those drawings get reviewed by the construction official.
And well, let me go back to when you heard the questions read to you that were part of the additional town experts' questions and a whole series of very significant issues to which I guess you and the attorney are stipulating they will be in fact addressed. Are you intending to come back and explain to us? Those are very major questions, major architectural questions. Is it your intention to come back and explain how you went about meeting those stipulations in a way that would satisfy this board?
So, it's a procedural question. And typically, in a zoning board or planning board setting, certain items can be deemed conditions of approval. If the board feels that they would like to see those things ahead of time, that's up to them. If they think that they're not material and can be dealt with the board's professionals as a condition of approval, the board will make that determination. We feel, maybe the board won't feel this way, or the board professionals won't feel this way, but we feel that the comments that we agreed to, the technical comments that the chairperson read, are not of a significance that we would have to come back and show those revisions. However, the board felt that they would like to see them. We'd be more than happy to show them.
The construction official, when they gave you
It's a common practice of this board when we get this kind of comments to read them in public spaces, which is what we've done, and we ask the client to testify or to stipulate, the applicant to stipulate that those items will be remedied or addressed. Occasionally, we will ask for details, but I would say most of the time, they stipulate that they will be addressed, and then it's up to the township's building department to make sure that they're in compliance. We can't force them, we merely cite them and make sure that they recognize them, and then they will remedy them, and that's all we can do.
And to supplement that, for example, item number 53 was every drive aisle should be dimensioned. If every drive aisle was dimensioned on the plans, there wouldn't be a note on it. They probably wouldn't testify, we dimensioned every drive aisle.
if I may say something, Mr. Steinhagen, you've taken a really bad example of what was read.
You want to pick a different one?
Thank you.
You want to pick a different one?
What?
Would you like to pick a
I'd like to have that so I can look at it.
Just
Just to clarify, the way I try to organize my letter is I put the issues, I put some general comments up top and things that I think that need to be addressed in the testimony and items that are important for the board to consider and hear about prior to making a decision. And the technical comments are items that I feel, and the board may agree or disagree, but I feel that are items that could be addressed as part of a condition of the approval. So if the board makes a decision, those would be items for construction, like adding a stop sign. You know, it'd be something that before the construction, if the plan went to construction, we would make sure that they added a stop sign. But it wouldn't necessarily be something that would
There are
be
many of these things that are much more complicated.
Well,
architecturally than
These
that.
are technical comments. Those are the ones that they
Yeah,
stipulated.
which ones are you talking about?
So not all of the items here are being addressed?
No.
Only some of them are being addressed?
What we talked about was, Roz, hold on.
After let Mr. Knox do her job, Dr. Powers, when you ask the question, let them answer. Same thing for you, when he asks the question, you answer. One at a time.
The ones that we talked about were 39 through 63, and so that's why I said if you'd like to pick a different one, they're all technical in nature. If they were shown on the plans, there wouldn't be a note about them.
Sanitary sewer calculations shall be provided. An analysis of the capacity of the town's existing sanitary system is required.
Yeah, like that one, the intent of that comment is the board would review the whole plan and then make a decision with the assumption that the sanitary sewer can handle the flow. And at the end, they have to provide the calculations. So we would review the calculations prior to signing off for any construction documents. And they also, with a building of this size, have to apply to the state of New Jersey, the DEP for a treatment works approval to get, they have to ensure there's enough capacity at the sewage.
And the county planning.
But just to be clear, number 34 was not one of the ones that we talked about. We were doing 39 through 62.
So it is only 39 to 62.
Those are the ones that they stipulated.
Okay, so the rest of the items in this document, which, as I thought I would see, was not available to the public before this meeting. So none of us had the opportunity to review it and ask questions that would seem to have been architectural in nature beforehand. It was actually dated the 17th of October. That's the day, and when I asked earlier today whether or not there was any additional materials for this hearing at noon, there were none.
I can tell you that I got this letter this afternoon.
I'd like to raise an objection as a result.
Okay.
I did issue the letter this afternoon, and I apologize for the lateness of the letter, but we get the plans 10 days in advance of the meeting, and the project this size sometimes just with scheduling and do the best we can to
If
review
you would
it.
like, I can have this one. Sure. But what this is the comments that the board engineer has made to the applicant about his plans, and the applicant likely will address them in a plan revision, which will be submitted.
Although Mr. Nastasi, I believe you had indicated you would be willing to come back. It appears as if your attorney has no interest in your doing so. I want to ask,
when did I say that? When did I say that? And also, your reference to the fact that we wanted to address other items in the report, and we are going to address other items.
I know, please stop.
The discussion was the applicant is stipulated to the following items. Didn't say that it wasn't doing the other ones. It was, for the record, we're doing items 39 through 62. There's other more substantive comments, like the sanitary sewer that you pointed out, which they will have to address in the future. They haven't done it yet because this letter came out today. You heard Mr. Nastasi, hold on. You heard Mr. Nastasi testify that the plans were dated 10/7/19. That's the day that they were submitted. Mr. Vince got them, did his review letter, and the comments were given today. That's
and my question is, at what point will the public have an opportunity to question the expert, the developer's expert, about what it is that they're doing in those relation to those questions?
It's really not for it's not for us, it's not for the zoning board. We simply stipulate that this has been cited by the engineer, and they will tell us to comply. That's the end of our job. Thank you. Let's move on.
You specified no building materials beyond the gray cementitious rain screen. Can you tell us more about how this building is to be built? So far as I can tell, and I've looked at a lot of your pictures, they're basically pictures about a diagram of things, but apparently there's got to be an engineer to more specifically raise questions. So what are the materials that you are specifying in this?
Are you talking about the construction elements?
Construction elements, yeah, sure.
Materials.
Are those specified? You certainly didn't testify to them if they're hidden in the.
What's your specific question, sir?
My specific question is what materials are you using?
I don't think it's appropriate for the architect to list all the materials that go into a 50.
I want to know what the fundamental structural characteristics
are. You asking is to be structural steel or reinforced concrete? What are you asking?
Well, I'm asking which materials.
I'm sorry, it's an inappropriate question. I don't think it's fair. It's not fair, but it's not possible for our architect to tell you what every material is going into this building. If you'd like to ask specifics about
what is the key structural material for the building from the basement to the 15th floor?
I think to answer your question, you're asking what's the construction system for the building?
That would be correct.
Reinforced concrete and structural steel.
And all the way to the top.
Yes.
And what are you using as the behind the clad that you're talking about? What's behind that? Is that plywood or what?
A building of this size would be a non-combustible building. So plywood wouldn't be used. It would be a non-combustible building sheathing, like a dense glass.
And can you tell us more about the windows? That's actually a question that this board has pushed very hard in relationship to other recent questions. Can you tell us about how the windows are constructed?
The windows would be insulated windows with thermal breaks.
And do we know who the builder of this is?
No, because we don't have a zoning approval.
Yeah, is your question who the general contractor would be? If that's your question, if that person has not been identified or that company has
All
not
right.
been identified.
Well, I'm going to press a really quite closely related question. Throughout the discussion, really beginning with you, but then also from the attorney and then from Mr. Rosen, there has been a discussion about the developer who has been seen to be this coterminous with or the same as the owner. Is your client a single person who owns this property?
I don't think that's an architectural question, but we can answer the question. I mean, the owner and the applicant are the same. It's not a contract purchaser type of situation. The owner is the applicant, and
The applicant is a single person.
No, hold on. Let me finish. I don't want to fight with you, Dr. Powers. I'm happy to answer any question that you have. We're here to do that. So when we submit a plan, when we submit an application, under the statute, right? If you're an entity that files an application, we have to submit what's called a disclosure statement pursuant to section 48.1 of municipal land use. Okay. So you know that, right?
Yeah.
So that document lists all of the owners, all of the principals in the entity. So that document is on file for you to see who the owners are of the entity.
That is on file with the building department?
It's part of the application. It's part of the application.
Part of the application.
It's actually, if I remember the Teaneck application, it's actually in the application itself. It's actually in the application itself. And then what we typically do is an addendum to the application that shows who the owners are, so it's clear that we're making that disclosure pursuant to 48.
Well, my request for that has not been honored. I will certainly pursue it. Thank you.
Sure.
But the owner and the developer, whether or not that's a single person or an entity, it appears now it's an entity, not a single person, are said to have been the people from whom you have learned that this building meets the needs of the community. Is that correct?
Again, I don't know if that's a question about the building. Do you have an architectural question?
I didn't raise the question, sir, of whether or not this building meets the needs of the community. That was raised by the architect. If he felt it was necessary for his testimony, then I can ask him questions about it.
I think that question is more suited for the developer or the planner.
That may be the case, but I want to know what he meant by it. He did that, on the basis of that, he told us that he went out and designed this building.
Sure.
And there was a team of apparently involving you as well.
I'm
who did so. But my question is,
I know your question is, and I'm going to stop it. It's not necessary. I think that we've already established, maybe the architect was out of line by saying that. Don't think that's what he meant. He's building this building according to the program and the requirements and the stipulations that the developer, his client, has given him. Perhaps he was out of line by saying meets the needs of the community. I don't recall him saying that, but let's go to the next question.
he said it even tonight, sir. He said it twice. He said it twice in the meeting before. He said it once tonight.
I didn't read it that way, and perhaps
Yeah,
it was
then
inappropriate.
you didn't hear it correctly.
Perhaps, I can hear what I can hear, sir.
Okay,
Tell me what I can hear.
Well, and
I will tell you that the architect perhaps was out of line by saying that, and let's move on to your next question.
You said tonight that this is being built in the heart of the downtown of Teaneck. Is it your understanding that where this is being built is the heart of the downtown of Teaneck?
What I testified was the relationship of the neighborhood commercial, and that how residents in this building would be able to walk to neighborhood commercial, to go to dinner, to go to the store, and it was a walkable neighborhood. It was a downtown setting because it's a walkable neighborhood.
So you did not mean the heart of the downtown of Teaneck, even though that's what you said.
I didn't specify the heart of the downtown, but
you
the
did.
downtown setting that yours very walkable, and that was the intent of my.
Those were exactly your words, sir. How many elevators are in this building?
If we look at the floor plans,
John just referred to the sheet.
That's a bank of two, is that right?
sheet 11.
You never made any reference to it in your presentation.
Okay, what are we marking? I think we're up to 820.
Yeah, it's part of the submission, but yeah.
I think we marked second.
The easy answer, the 3 elevators.
Actually, what it was said to be was 101, 1 and 101, 2.
Hold on.
And that turns out not to be the case.
Mr. Asadi, are we going to mark the floor plan that you have up on the left?
We can.
Why don't? We're going to testify off of this? If we're going to talk about the floor plan that's on the left, let's mark it.
Just mark the exhibit, John.
What's the number?
820?
820.
Dr. Powers, if you don't mind, could you just repeat the questions just so we can answer it?
Before he does that, sorry, just describe the sheet. Describe the sheet that you, what is it?
A20 is a typical lower floor plan at the base of the residential building.
Does it have a number on it that you prepared?
11.
And that was in the submission package?
Yes. And to answer the question, there are 3 residential elevators for the residential part of the building, and then there's 1 commercial elevator for the 2 commercial spaces on State Street.
I saw that. Where's the third elevator?
1, 2, 3.
That's not in the commercial space?
The commercial space.
Just mark the next sheet, John.
821 and sheet 12.
You went to the right one just then.
Sheet A102. Should we mark that in?
Yep, 821.
821.
So is that last revised 10-7?
Yes. Provision number 3. A102 is the second floor plan, and on this plan, you can see two residential elevators and 1 fire stair, 1 residential elevator, the second fire stair, a 3rd stair for the commercial space, including the commercial elevator.
All right, and they go from which floors to which floors?
The commercial elevator,
I know that. I'm talking about the ones in the residential section.
they connect the residential floors down to the parking levels.
Down to the basement.
To the parking
lot.
lot, yes.
And they are designed to hold people with handicaps and so forth?
They have to, yes.
And how many of those are Shabbat elevators?
I don't know the answer to that question.
You did last time.
No, I didn't.
On page 82.
Yes.
On page 82, you said yes, question. About the Shabbat.
Somebody asked if there would be.
And you said?
yes or probably yes.
No, you didn't say
But I didn't
probably
say,
yes.
I didn't
You
say
said
that, but I didn't say which. Your question is, did I
No,
know?
that's not a question.
Please.
You both two grown men, and I know you talk one at a time.
I never specified which elevators would be those type of designated elevators.
Are you know?
No.
As an operational question?
I don't know how it's relevant.
It's
As long as-
Well,
as long as the elevators-
I need to understand what the word inclusionary on page 28 meant, since that was also a description of this building. Inclusionary of,
You need to give us more context.
it's on page 28.
That doesn't mean anything. What is
Want
it?
me
What's
to
the
read
second?
it?
Yes, please. You can ask a question about it. You can't ask what a word.
Excuse me. That's one thing. I should have mentioned at the beginning is clearly we have to provide our 15% affordable obligation and the bedroom mixes will be consistent with state law on affordable units as a combination of 1, 2, student. And just one thing that I should have mentioned at the beginning is clearly we have to provide our 15% affordable obligation and the bedroom mixes will be consistent with the state law on affordable units as a combination of 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms. It's an inclusionary project, and all the affordable units will be the same as the market rate units.
The first part that you read is what it means, inclusion.
You are limiting inclusionary to...
It's a target market for affordable housing.
And you specified that the 2-bedroom apartments would be 1,000, I can't remember exactly, 1,100 and 1,500 square feet. Has it been decided which of those are going to be affordable units? There's a significant difference in what, in those different sizes.
Dr. Powers, we have no choice but to comply with state regulations on the affordable unit. So if the project were approved, your planner would have to confirm which units pursuant to state law would be the affordable units in the building.
So you do not mean for the idea of inclusionary and meeting a community need. Necessarily
Dr. Harris, an inclusionary development is a development that consists of affordable housing and market rate housing. That's all it is.
It means that you have the affordable units in the property as opposed to putting them off-site.
I'm trying to figure out just when it is that he is meeting regulatory answers and those which he's refusing to go ahead and give additional explanation for. And I am astonished that having promised in his testimony that this meets the needs of the community. I understand you two have suggested, along with the attorney, that the developer would be here to respond to the questions about how he was able to determine whether or not the community needs were being met. Is that right?
I didn't hear what you said, Dr. Powers. Are you asking Mr. Nastasi, an
I was
architect?
asking Mr. Nastasi that question because that's the only person to whom I can ask the question and have it on the record.
Oh, so I don't think that was an architectural question.
Are you aware that this town has had several very large meetings where the public has been asked to discuss buildings?
That's not a question applicable to this client. Witness, please continue. But please ask questions of this.
Mr. Vice Chair, they spent three pages of testimony discussing it. How could it not be relevant?
Because he is not part of his testimony.
Yes, it was part of his testimony. Do you want to know what page it is? It was on goes on for many pages of the testimony. Now, maybe he shouldn't have answered them because they weren't architectural questions.
Well, that's right. So let's continue. Let's continue.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, you know, what counts and what doesn't. Let me go to one more question. Building height. When you cited 111 as the height of the of 1475 for comparison, was that based on what had been granted by this board on in the early summer of 2017?
111 feet is the final height of the building as provided to us by Teaneck zoning officer.
And that included the elevator, which was what this board had to approve for 1475 in the summer of 2017.
John, do you know if it included the elevator? If you know, answer. If you don't know, you don't
The
know.
elevator bulkhead goes above that height.
Well, they came back for a specific.
Okay, we're not here
on that question.
Okay.
Well, I just, you know, it would be good to have, you know, we didn't get very far on some of the numbers, and I'm just trying to figure out I am completely flummoxed as to why things that this architect testified to are somehow irrelevant when the public asking questions about it. Thank you very much.
Sherry Hood, H-O-O-D, Franklin Road. In regards to the footprint of the structure, I understand it takes up 100% of the lot coverage. So if there's no impervious surfaces on grade level, how are you truly addressing the runoff issue? And then the other question is, how can a project like this have 100% lot coverage when the residents of Teaneck who have smaller lots can only build from 40%?
Let's ask one question at a time. First question.
The first question about runoff. We're on 100% lot coverage, you're correct. But our roofs, our green roofs that collect rainwater and absorb rainwater, we also have stormwater collection. So you can prohibit runoff by collecting rainwater through absorption of green roofs or stormwaters.
Okay, with that absorption and your runoff is then still going to be filtered through the building in your storm drains. So now you're still putting more rainwater back into our systems. So how is that addressed? Because it's not, some of it will perk because you do have some green coverage up top, but for that size property, the amount of perking and what kind of studies have been done to really do the calculations for those perks when you're covering 100% of lot coverage?
I think that's a very good question. The site right now is 100% impervious. Right now, blacktop. It's completely impervious. We're building a building with green roofs and with storm levers. So our building will collect water more efficiently than the parking lot does right now. So right now the water hits the parking lot, runs off into the street. We're collecting, you see all this green on the roof, that absorbs rainwater. So just a percentage of the rain will go into the storm lever system. Green trays absorb rainwater, and I think everyone should have green trays on the roof. So our building does a better job of collecting rainwater than the existing 100% impervious lot does right now.
And so there'll be calculations for us to review and all of that, so we can really see as far as what those calculations will be.
We actually reviewed what was submitted, and originally the applicant was proposing a detention system in the basement, and we actually told them to eliminate that. And I know that sounds crazy that the town has asked for the detention system to be eliminated, but in this particular case, the existing lots are 100% impervious. So right now, the runoff is at the maximum potential for those properties. And we felt that by having a building like this, if they were to collect all of the rainwater on the site, they're not increasing the impervious coverage at all. It's maintained at 100%. So If they did nothing, the amount of runoff from the site is not going to be increased at all. It's going to stay exactly the same. And we felt by having them collect all the rainwater off of the roof and then piping it into a basement that's below the ground level, and then they were going to have to pump it out. And if those pumps ever failed, then now they're taking all the rainwater from their site and bringing it into a basement, and it's going to create flooding and actually do a lot more harm than good. So what we did instead is we requested them, they did have a substantial landscaping plan on the roof, which would help the runoff, and we also asked for additional green roof plantings. And green roofs are actually an approved strategy by the DEP in the Best Management Practices Manual, and also as part of their new green infrastructure initiative. So that will reduce the amount of runoff from the site. Not necessarily from very large storms, but from smaller everyday storms, and probably the water quality storm, which is about an inch of rain. It will, the water has to go through the green roof material, which is like soil, and then typically there's an underdrain underneath that, so it will slow down the amount of, it will increase the amount of time that it takes for the water to get into this public drainage system, and it will have an improvement on the system versus what's there today.
So in regards to, with the calculations for the green roof, and I believe the gentleman's question regarding the snow issue, so all of those load calculations are now going to be based upon the live loads up there and the dead loads of the snow and the green areas and things like that. So all of those calculations will be done based upon that.
Yes, all of that is taken into consideration by the engineers. Yes. Thank you.
I'm looking at this thing from sorry, Dr. Kruger, sorry, just so the record, just identify yourself again. Sorry. I'm looking at this from a community perspective. There's a lot of competition in the area for apartments. This apartment building is not in a particularly good spot. The board has given variances to another location that seems to have some vacancy problems.
Sir,
I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about this place.
No, I know, I understand.
My question is, what kind of marketing plan will this organization have to give the board a feeling that they're going to fill the apartment?
I think it's a relevant question. I don't think it's a question for this witness.
It's not for the architect, it's for you. The question is, in terms of being able to pass or do whatever you do, my question is the building going to be filled up?
Sir,
and how do we assure that? That's my first
question. Thank you for the question. It's not the time for that kind of question. We are confining ourselves to questions of this at this point. You can ask that question at an appropriate time if the developer testifies, or at the end when it's time to testify. But
save it, because that's the question that everybody wants to know the answer.
It's a very important question. I'd like to know the answer myself, but it's not the proper time in the process. Yes, ma'am. Identify yourself.
Good evening, Denise Belcher, BELCHER, 703 Cedar Lane. My question to the architect, I know that you went into detail about the Plaza parking system. My question is, for the most part, it seems as if you're taking into consideration the parking for the residents that would occupy this particular property. My question is, what about visitors? And I guess I'm wondering, do you or your client, have you taken into account the fact that when visitors oftentimes visit, they want to park on the street, and there's a unique phenomenon that happens in North Teaneck Road area, and that is people park on side streets. Case in point, last year there was a youngster that was hit and thrown from his bicycle on Beaufort Street, and that was simply because he couldn't see. because of the number of cars that park very close to Teaneck Road, taking into account needing to board a New York City bus. So my question is, what solutions or remedies would you or your client have as it pertains to parking for people that are unable to park in the plan or proposed parking?
So, again, I think this is a question for the traffic engineer in terms of parking. It's not really a building design type question, but again, we comply with the state standards, which is inclusive of residential who lives there, as well as the visitor. So again, as counsel for the board indicated, the state standard for a building such as this type of building, they're set for how many spaces you need for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. So those standards factor in the people that live there and people that come and visit. So we've complied with those standards. So it's inclusive of visitors as well as the residents. But if you have additional questions regarding the parking, our traffic engineer, when she testifies, she's been eagerly waiting, but when we get to her, she'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
David Stella. I just have a question for the board. Something that I raised in a previous meeting. That is, having these exhibits made available to the entire audience, not just to the people who sit in the first 2 rows. So I noticed that there's a projector up here and there's a screen behind you. Why not have all of your meetings going forward in this room or in some other room?
It's a great suggestion, and the board can take it. We're not always in this room. We're usually in the town council, but it's not a good question now. It's not a broken question now. This is the system we have to deal with. If you have a better system, please approach the town.
No, I want to know when you might take that question up. Let's have a...
Sir, I hear you. I hear you. Your question has been answered. This is the system we're working on. This is the way we work. If you have a better system, please propose it to the town.
I just proposed it. When will you institute it?
It's not for us to do that. It's for the town council. Any other questions?
So I should ask the question of the town council.
I answer that question. Because of the location we're in, we didn't have an opportunity to set this up with the Teaneck High School.
I agree.
The council chambers has a capability, but it can't hold the amount of people we have. So it's either or.
There's another element. If you want to mandate that a developer put its exhibits on a projector, you need to change your ordinance.
I'm sorry?
You need to change your ordinance.
Which ordinance might that be?
The submission of the land use procedures ordinance. If you want, the ordinance specifies the terms upon which, for example, the number of copies of the plans you have to submit, the number of applications you have to submit. If you want it on the projector, the ordinance has to tell applicant you need to submit a USB drive containing all of your exhibits in advance. It has to be done by ordinance. The city council, the township council, has to adopt that ordinance.
And that ordinance is on the website?
Excuse me?
And that ordinance is on the website?
Proposed to the town council. The town council considers it.
No, that ordinance with that particular language is on the Teaneck's website?
I don't know.
Well, somebody has the ordinance.
No.
Do I need a detective to find it?
I'm going to stop this now. I hear you. We need to move along. We need to move along. If there are any more questions of the architect, then we will thank you, Mr. Nastasi, and yes, I'm sorry, one more question.
Just wanted to ask a couple of questions about room sizes. Can I just pick out a couple of random units and maybe you can tell me about bedroom sizes?
Sure.
And living room sizes? So say, I'm looking at page A104.
Okay.
Let's say take unit 3. What are the dimensions of a bedroom?
In unit 3, the width of the unit is about 24 feet 11 inches. So your bedroom is probably 10 or 11 feet in the short direction and probably 14 feet in the long direction.
So the living room in that unit would be equal?
A little bit longer because of the, it's open to the dining room. And then also for scale, that's a queen-size bed in the bedroom, so you could see it in relationship to the scale of the bed.
Are all the bedrooms in the building comparable to that?
Comparable. I mean, they change a little bit, but they're comparable.
Okay, and I see like there's a heavy black line that separates the units. And along that black line, I see these white, like dashes. Well, what are they?
It's a dashed line to show that it separates two units.
Well, sir, you have to come to the mic because she can't pick you up.
It's just a time to do it? I was discussing a one-bedroom. Okay, thank you.
So, any questions on this witness? Okay, yes, thank you.
Howard Rose. I'm not here as a board member of the planning board or the Board of Education. I'm here as a resident. And my question to you, sir, thank you for the information about the green roof. And my question is, does that imply that a green roof, that throughout the roofing, it's a flat roof? Or it is sloped roofs as well?
The roofs are flat in nature. There's no sloped roofs, although any flat roof is actually tipped to collect water.
Good.
But they're flat roofs.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bell. All right, so here's that dilemma. It's 5 minutes to 10. I would imagine the traffic engineer is going to need a substantial amount of time. And I would imagine that the board will have questions for it as well as the public. It's not my intention to go to a late hour as we have done in the past to preserve our sanity. Tell me what you would like to do. Would you like to put your witness's testimony on the record and come back and then have her answer questions? Or
I think I'd like to start, if that's okay, but how long does the board, I mean, I don't want to also impose on the board if the board is, as long as it's been a long night, I know.
How long do you anticipate the traffic consultant's director?
I think the director will most likely be about 30 minutes. Let me just, Mr. Jim, just give me 1 minute to group the
Good. Good.
I think in the spirit of making sure everybody's fresh and in a good state of mind, because I know everybody's tired right now, we'll start the traffic testimony at the next meeting. I know everybody in the public has been sitting for a while and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Let's pick a date.
I guess we could do one of two things. We could do that.
When would we have that, those dates approved by the December meeting?
We'll have those dates approved for November.
For the November meeting? Okay.
Roz, you mean setting the I can't believe it's 2020 already, but setting the 2020 annual meeting schedule, you'll have that by the November meeting?
Yes, we can approve it that night and then.
Okay. Okay, so
I would say if the I'm not going to lock you into this, but I would assume that it will have another special meeting.
Yeah, I mean, based on, the number of public interest, I think special meetings are.
Right, so I would tentatively say, I'm not going to lock anybody into this, but I would tentatively say it'd be January 16th, that's the pattern of our meetings, but we'll carry that in November.
All right, so let's just make sure.
We have special consultants. I'm sorry, the board has conflict consultants, So if we're gonna set the special meeting date for if we're gonna set the regular meeting schedule for 2020 in November, it might be prudent to carry this to the December meeting so that we can confirm with our experts there that they are available.
That would be December 5th.
That would be the 5th, right?
That's fine.
Yeah, if we're not gonna hear it on November or December anyway,
Okay.
it makes sense to make sure that we have our experts available rather than setting a date.
All right.
And then
But
changing.
I would suggest that your witness keep that January 16th day open.
So
That should be the date, but I can't commit to it.
So, Mr. Steiner, I think, or Chairman Rosen, whoever wants to do this, just because we're used to this carrying and all that stuff, maybe we should just do a good explanation for the public on what exactly we're doing, so they're clear on what's going to happen.
Members of the public, at the beginning of this application, in advance of the first hearing, which I believe was in August, that didn't actually happen. The applicant gave a notice that was published in the newspaper and sent to property owners within 200 feet of its site. The municipal land use, the board and the applicant to what's called carry the notice, so they don't have to renotice, as long as the board announces the next meeting date at the meeting, which is what we're trying to do. But because we don't know when the next meeting date is, we're going to carry it to a date at which the next meeting date will be known. Roz, Ms. McLean will be posting this on the board. An agenda will be posted in advance of the meeting. Does the website say when the special meetings happen?
No, because we didn't approve it yet.
No, but once a special meeting is set,
Right.
it'll be on the website.
But again, the pattern of our meetings if a special meeting would be on the third Thursday of the week, which would be.
Well, don't hold to that.
No, I'm absolutely saying.
But we also get the location.
That's right. So keep that date in your minds. We can't lock to it. Members of the public, we have not set that next meeting in stone yet. We can't do that, but we will announce it confirm it the 5th, on December 5th. I would advise that you contact the building department, Mr. Crane's office, to confirm when that meeting is. We are not obligated to notice the public again, which is the way the ordinance goes. But I would guess that'll be around January 16th, but I can't confirm it, and I'm not legally allowed to. But that's kind of the date we're at.
Just to be clear, we did renotice for the September meeting, and this is a month's question.
I would imagine that the King's birthday weekend will be January 13th. That's a Monday, I would guess. Is that right?
We're not going to have a meeting that second. So the meeting for the special meeting will most likely be the 23rd.
23rd. Okay, so
We're gonna announce it on
unfortunately, this is what we're faced with, a complicated schedule.
Members of the public, if you're here on the application of 189 the Plaza, this matter is being carried to December 5th for the purpose of establishing a new date. New date and place, at which time the board will announce the future meeting date, time, and location, when this matter will be continued for actual testimony.
Okay, but just to be clear, we're carrying this public hearing to the December 5th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Adjustment at 7 p.m. in the municipal chamber.
Let's get a motion from the board.
And the applicant extends the time for
Yes.
the board to act?
Yes.
Not necessarily because it's supposed to be changed. That would be noticed as well.
No, I mean the December 5th meeting.
So members of the public, we are going to carry this till December 5th, but we will not have hearings or testimony on December 5th. So if you'd like to come, we're always welcome to our meeting, but we will not hear the case on December 5th. We'll just simply have a legal procedure to carry it to the January meeting once we know what those dates are. We are unfortunately in a state of flux, not knowing what the dates are, but that's what we are. That's where we are. So I'm going to ask for a motion from a member of the board to carry this. Please wait, everybody, please. Is there a motion to carry this meeting without further notice to the public to Thursday, December 5th, 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Do I hear that motion? So moved. Mr. Brown,
Second.
Ms. Holmes, seeing no objection, we will convene this meeting again on the 5th for the purpose of carrying it to a January date. I will now entertain anybody wishes to make any statements of good welfare. I will again caution the public that good welfare is not intended to solicit your testimony, your comments about this case, or any other case. Good welfare is here to hear your statements about process, about anything you wish to talk about, but the members of the board cannot hear testimony or your opinion about this case or other. Dr. Powell, looks like you're at the microphone first.
Chuck Powers, 1374 County Lane, Teaneck. My comments are to the board, not to to its attorney, and not to the others who have just been involved.
These are confined to 3 minute seconds. Okay.
Am I starting again or what?
Start again.
I think that the board needs very clear clarification of what counts as something that can go into evidence, stated by a witness, and then the denial of the public to be able to question the meaning of that in a subsequent discussion. I've watched this happen several times. It certainly happened, in my judgment, in a way that could easily sustain an objection. It would be not something that this board would like to see, but it is the idea that somehow the chair or the attorney for the developer or the attorney for the township can decide what is liable to be asked of somebody who actually makes a statement as though they were speaking as an expert, like they know what the community needs are. I'm sorry, but that is something that this public has had a very difficult time getting into this discussion, and when somebody, an expert, actually propounds it, it seems to me is inappropriate to be cut off. And I would raise objections if it ever happens again in a very clear form. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make this statement? Again, we are asking for comments unrelated to the details of this case, which we can't take as evidence. Sir.
Dr. Eugene Nesmith, this is more of a question, actually, in regard to final approval of this project. I just want to know when, I guess, the Board of Adjustment or the zoning board, that meeting will take place, so the public and people who are concerned can come and make their concerns known.
All right, so I will do my best to answer that. I can't give you a date. These cases go long. It's when the applicant attorney has finished presenting his or her witnesses, and there are no further questions from the board or the public. At that point, the public again is invited to make comments about the case. I have no idea when this can go. If you can gauge by the fact that we already have one witness who's taken 2 sessions, you can draw from that we'll be here into the spring.
The only way to really, I guess your question is how do I make sure that I'm here?
Yeah, is this the board?
This is the board. Unfortunately, the way that the process works is the only way to be sure is to either come to the meetings or call the board and find out. That's it.
Again, I don't expect that to happen until
it's going to be a while.
This is a very quick question.
Did we make any progress?
Follow up with what you were saying about there being a need for an ordinance change to have the PowerPoint. Isn't there a requirement in terms of the American Disabilities Act for people to be able to actually see the information? Because we can't see the information. The font is too small. So would you have to go back and change the ordinance if you needed to blow up the pictures so we could see them? Because we can't really see them. You can see them.
Yeah. I'm not sure, I don't know the answer to your question.
Could you just, I was asking just to see if you could
That's
find out,
legitimate.
and see if you could just something about it.
You're completely right about that.
I understand the question, I don't know the answer.
That's fair.
The submission requirements are set out by the municipal land use law and the local ordinance. You can't make a developer blow things up. I don't think that it's a public accommodation issue in the sense that these are developers' exhibits. They're pieces of paper, they can give us what they want us to see. If the board finds it's acceptable, that's one thing. If they find it's not acceptable, it's another thing.
Let's do it.
The one thing that you can always do, at least as it relates to the submission documents, is you can ask for copies.
You're going to turn everything you talk about into a question.
Or they're available on file, too.
And I did that one time. It's just the hard thing about that is most of us work, and I work in New York City. I'm not trying to, but that's what the challenge is. And also when we're having discussions, I just think and I'll just finish with this. I don't want to belabor it. I think that maybe some of the questions that come up, if we could see things a little bit clearer, it might help in the flow. But I also hear you that you can't require that of the developers. And again, I'm just asking if there's any way to explore it. So, because I've seen in the notes that even you guys have trouble reading what's given to you.
I was told
If we
there
were
was
to
no
make a
information about
stipulation
all this.
in these cases, that means
Tell me
every
that,
homeowner
Melfi.
space that comes before us will have the same requirements. That means everyone that comes before us for a addition or a deck, they would have to do the same
I want
thing.
everybody who is here tonight.
So while your suggestion makes sense, think about what the ordinance applies to everything. The ordinance is not going to carve out certain kinds of applications. So it's an unwieldy system, but
Just grab me a piece of paper.
unfortunately that's what we have. And again,
Right
the
there.
great
That's all my stuff.
majority of our cases are homeowners looking for the extra room, the addition, the extra, you get it. So it's just
I get it.
very, very cumbersome. But
All right. Well, maybe you can all think about it.
I can tell you that I think it's a good idea. When I present applications, I like to do that.
And if it's a certain, they want to come into the office.
Where do you live?
And if it's a certain
Much better.
thing you want to see,
You're right in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Enlarge certain areas.
Thank you. You bet.
Paperwork, come and say, can you make this a little larger so I can see it? I have no problem.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you.
I think there's Ms. Oleajo, final comment.
Hi. My question is about the procedure. As you may know, with one of the other cases, one of the other applications, I kind of got stuck. When I first came to my first meeting, I was told, I kind of felt that applicants from developers had an edge. They have a lot of money, they can hire experts, they can get legal advice, and I felt that the system is sort of skewed to their advantage. And the chairman told me that no, because when it comes to the end, we can speak out, and we're considered, experts in our own right. So then I got what I consider to be perfectly expert testimony from pretty much as high as you could go at New Jersey Transit. When I tried to enter this as evidence, I was told I can't do that. I brought copies galore, and I was told I can't do anything with it. So I took it home. And then I was told I can speak. So I put that as part of my own testimony. Took an oath, quoted from the letter, and then I was told I can't even say that, and why didn't I bring copies? So I'm kind of baffled. How do I go about bringing in something which somebody said to me, this is what I'm telling you?
That's the problem. It's someone told me something. We had this conversation 2 weeks ago. The problem with presenting something that someone said is that That person's not under oath. And I'm not saying that they're not telling the truth, but if, for the same reason that tonight, for example, it would be problematic for Mr. Toole to offer testimony about what his client said who wasn't here, it's the same way it's problematic for engineers.
Okay, but you accept reports in writing.
So I take it it is a multi-ownership thing, right?
I know it doesn't seem fair, but the way that
sort of drag that out
the
tonight.
process works, this is the way that courts in the state of
It
New
makes
Jersey,
me
courts
furious
all over the
that I
country,
asked for that.
everybody
I was told
who
it
uses
didn't
the
make sense.
Commonwealth system operates is that experts who are professionals who are entitled to rely on certain types of things. They are entitled to rely on matters that are within their area of expertise and things that they typically rely upon. And that's why experts, people who are, and that's why when Mr. Norderweir came up, I said, we don't qualify.
But that's fine, but you accept reports. You accept impact reports, you accept other reports.
But then they're here to testify.
What?
And then the people who present the reports, for example, a stormwater.
You're telling me what somebody else told you.
The engineer is the person who prepares the report, and that person is here to answer questions about it, should there be a need for it.
Every report that the person comes before you and testifies?
As necessary, yeah. Or it's a report that someone can rely upon because of their professional expertise.
Because I would consider somebody from the office of the president at New Jersey Transit to be pretty reliable.
Who's the expert who's presenting it?
I just want to say what I find is that no matter what I do, I mean, I can't ask the vice president of New Jersey Transit to come down here every time to say, she's right, I talked to her, she's right.
The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board, which means it's like a court of law. So when you come to testify in court, they're talking to you, asking you questions. All of our experts are professionals. They bring their reports, we get them, the applicant get them, and you can get copies of the reports. But you have to, by law, be able to answer a question and ask the question of the person presenting it. You presented something that seems like hearsay, even though it's true. But these people are paid professionals. They have their reports, and they can be questioned by you because they're here, and they can be questioned by the board because they're here.
I really think that saying that I
Is it
couldn't
possible,
question
is it
him about
legal
that statement
then
is
to
just
submit, for example, a clip
would be a valid
from a
objection.
forum that they presented in which they said the same things?
The same problem. And I'll stay with you talking about hearsay after. Is that okay?
I actually have to go because my ride is coming.
You can't offer an unsworn, and this is the way the court rules, an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. To say, if the person says, we don't have more capacity, if you're trying to demonstrate that there's no capacity, that's an out-of-court statement. Even though it's on video, we know that it happened. We don't know, for the purposes of the process, that it's a sworn true statement subject to cross-examination. It's a frustrating process, and I understand that. I wish it were different, but that's the way it is. And everybody has the right to do it, and it's the same rules for everybody.
Except for the developers.
So maybe we do need that.
Thank you. It really is skewed and in favor of those that got the big bucks. What can I say? It pretty much is.
Gotta hear you.
Sure, one more question.
Alcohol, like H-U-L-N-I-C-K. Is there ever a circumstance where an affidavit is accepted? Or does the person actually have to be able to be questioned?
Right question.
Because it's sworn, I mean, if it's sworn on paper, an affidavit would
It's
be
subject
accepted
to
in court.
cross-examination.
So it has to be cross-examined. I believe you. I read those.
So this is the statute. It says, NJSA 4055B-10, testimony of all witnesses relating to an application for development shall be taken under oath or affirmation by the presiding officer, and the right of cross-examination shall be permitted to all, the testimony of all witnesses relating to an application for development shall be taken under oath or affirmation by the presiding officer, and the right of cross-examination shall be permitted to to all interested parties through their attorneys if represented, or directly if not represented, subject to the discretion of the presiding officer and to reasonable limitations as to time and number of witnesses. Yeah, the chair can limit the witnesses.
Limit the number
And the
and
time.
how long you can testify. They can't limit that. It's just like when you watch TV, you watch court, if somebody's sitting in the chair, each person gets to ask them questions. And if you're giving us a statement, nobody can ask that person a question. If you present a statement and it says X, Y, and Z, somebody else who could be just like you might be concerned or might not understand what you've read. And then, because you didn't write it or say it yourself, you can't explain what's in that paper. Do you understand now why it has to be that way? Why the person who actually says those words has to be here to explain their words?
Okay, I really appreciate all of your.
One other question. The master plan, does that come into play with any of this?
The planner.
I didn't hear you.
The planner. There's a planning witness. I'm not sure who their planner is going to be. He or she is going to be the last witness to testify. It's my suspicion.
So the master plan of Teaneck will be spoken upon by an outside source who's outside of Teaneck?
Well, okay, so the applicant has his witnesses. The
applicant is the person who's trying to do the development, or whoever, okay.
For any application that involves variance, something that they have to prove is that there won't be substantial impairment to the intent and purposes of the zone plan, which is the master plan, and the zoning ordinance.